And so those characters were archetypes that I wanted to bring into the stories because I knew at the end the majority of them was going to be changed and be the next stage of this evolutionary thing. Akadon was the same because, like Moses, he wasn't going to make it to the promised land. That left me with only the dissatisfied warrior Dreadstar. So as it continued on, they sort of grew.
Digging on the comics. Guess I still dig them when I'm 6x6. Digging my kicks. Digging on the comics. I like to save them. And I like to trade them. I read them. I need them. I'm living every page.
The entire comic book industry, besides Marvel and DC, is undervalued by the general public. As comic aficionados, as fans of the art form and the medium, we'd like to have a podcast out there that covers the entire rest of the industry, besides the so-called big two, besides just superheroes, though we'll cover them as well. And for that purpose, we will be your underguides. The EO Mac.
Hold, please.
Mr. Joe Fixit.
I fuck up the recordings all the time. I fall asleep in the middle of recordings.
And myself, Frank.
Mr. Fixit, where did you first encounter Dreadstar material?
You gave it to me.
So you never read any of Dreadstar before me?
No, I'm lying. I think I read it, in Heavy Metal?
Epic Illustrated, probably.
Epic. There you go, Epic. I remember reading some of it in Epic, but I didn't know it was called Dreadstar.
Well, I mean, in Epic it wouldn't have been. It would have been the Metamorphosis Odyssey.
Yes.
Did you have them all?
I think I was missing some of it. I mean, I've read it, but I didn't quite understand because I think I read like toward the middle. I think I was missing an issue or so.
Yeah, it was hard to keep up with that one.
Because I think it was like a story at the back of issues, but it wasn't like back-to-back issues. I don't remember, but
I think that the original Metamorphosis Odyssey was in every issue of Epic Illustrated until it ended. I think that's one of the reasons why they would have multiple chapters was because Jim Starlin, I read in one of the introductions to one of the different trades they've got, Walt Simonson was his studio mate. I think it was Upstart Studios. It was like him, Bernie Wrightson. I think Jim Sherman from Legion of Superheroes was in there at some point in time. Val May Eric was in there. What Simonson was talking about was, like most artists, he's the guy who's going to be cramming to get the work done at the end of the month. Or he'll be pilly-farting for too long, and then he has to do the crunch to make up for it. And he was saying how Jim Starlin is one of the only guys who he ever knew who was a professional comic artist who would be ahead of deadline. So I think it was a situation where Starlin was working on it, I think even before Epic Illustrated was a thing. I think he was already developing it. And originally it was black and white, and then it slowly becomes color. And the reason for that was that Archie Goodwin, who inherited Epic Illustrated, there was another guy who was tasked with starting it. He was there for like a week, they say, and then Archie Goodwin came to take over. And he basically told Jim, look, you're going to be the main strip in this book. You're the guy who gets your stuff in on time. You got the most catalog. You're the biggest name. So we need your stuff to be in color. So he'd already done work in black and white. And that's the reason why it switches to color is because Epic wanted them to do so. And we're going to pay him to do so. And again, they had multiple chapters in some issues. So I think what it was is the book came out, I think, quarterly initially. I think it eventually got to a bi-monthly. I don't think it ever made it to monthly status. We're collecting it, like you were getting yours probably the late 80s, early 90s, yes. Right? So we're getting it piecemeal. It's not like we could go off the stands and buy the shit. So that's why we've got gaps in it. Now, there is one story that was much later, but we'll get to that one. So you'd originally gotten the Epic Illustrated as a sort of an adjunct to your heavy metal fandom.
I mean, if you went into a heavy metal box, there'd be Epic, there'd be
1984.
Yeah, just all kinds of weird. I got the Dune official movie comic,
the Marvel Super Specials.
Yeah, stuff like that. So you'd always find kind of cool stuff in there.
So you had a passing familiarity through Epic Illustrated. I'm guessing it wasn't one of your main features in that book, though.
No.
Was there a reason why it didn't resonate with you as much as some of the other material?
Maybe because I didn't have the complete story. Mm-hmm. So I would read it and be like, okay, this is kind of cool. It's Egyptian thing with cat people. I thought that's what it was like some kind of Egyptian story with cat people. And
some like Von Donigan type thing.
Yeah, and so, I was more into the heavy metal, anything that was like, Den or something like that along the lines of that. That's
not enough boobies, is what he's trying to say.
If he's talking about Richard Corbin, you'd have gotten the uglies would be in full display. What do you remember about the story?
Nothing, dude. seemed like a bunch of Egyptian stuff. That's all I remember.
So did you ever actually read the entire thing, or you just read bits and pieces?
Bits and pieces.
Okay. And it's not really that important to what we're talking about anyway. I was going to mention, though, because Mac and I had talked about this previously, Jim Starlin was obviously the model for Vanth Dreadstar, and it is Vanth. Vanth is apparently from pre-Greek mythology, like that region, but before the Greek myth came in, there was some other one, I don't remember what it was called, and so Vanth is from that. So Vanth is the correct pronunciation. I think that was a Peter David thing where he wanted to call them Vance. So Vanth was obviously Jim Starlin. He had a hoodie, and he ripped off the sleeves, and that's how he would paint him. Julia was Lynn Varley, if I remember correctly. Yeah, it was Lynn Varley, who was the colorist on The Dark Knight Returns. She was at one time married to Frank Miller, who played her father as the paint reference in the story.
Yeah, you should clarify. You're talking about the literal like paint reference for the people.
Right. He'd take photographs of these people that he knew in his life who were part of the studio or just part of his life.
Because when you say the main character of a creator-owned comic book is the person who created it, that's like every creator-owned comic book. They are the main protagonist.
Yeah, he was his own reference.
Yeah.
Although it's funny because as somebody was asking about this, in some of the early Dreadstar installments, they would do a fumetti where his photographs turned into a comic book, and there would be a person playing Jim Starlin with a paper bag over his head, but Starlin was the one taking the pictures, so the person playing Jim Starlin was almost never Jim Starlin. Akhenaton, the main Egyptian dude you were talking about, was Valmey Eric, who is probably best known as the co-creator for Howard the Duck. I did some stuff for Man-Thing. He was one of the one of the epic artists for the Void Indigo series, which infamously, because there was so much backlash to the level of violence in the miniseries, that Marvel canceled it when it was intended to be an ongoing series. When it was just too violent for them in the mid-80s. That was some, Tipper Gore era bullshit. His own cats were the model for Eddie. One of his cats was named Eddie, and the other cat was named something else, but the other cat was the model for the face. And so that had played out in Epic Illustrated, and the way that Jim Starlin tells it, he was always wanting to experiment, always wanted to try something new. Eclipse Enterprises had put out the first major graphic novels in North America with Don McGregor and Paul Gulacy's Saber. Apparently he was just going across the street to try things out with them. The way that Dean Mulaney of Eclipse thinks, he thinks that Marvel ripped off Eclipse by having Epic. He figured that the looks were too similar. And I think there's a good argument to be made because clearly they stole the Eclipse Comics monograph and turned it into the Star brand for the new universe. Clearly, that's what they did. And he feels that what had happened was Jim Starlin was using the publication of the graphic novel The Price as a bargaining tool to get Marvel to up its price for the ongoing series once that got started. And so those are two different perspectives on that. But the graphic novel was published by Eclipse, the second book of the Metamorphosis Odyssey. Fixit, did you ever read The Price?
I believe you gave me, it's like a magazine size?
Yeah.
Yes, you gave me a copy and I read that.
And then I know that Mac read it because we planned this. And now, Dad, tell me this. Now, why don't you tell us a little bit about your presentation, how you read the story?
I think it was I think it's a graphic novel, right? Like a big portfolio size, black covered graphic novel that you would have given me. Painted cover. That's it. With Syzygy Darklock on the cover.
Yeah, I did a little research on that too. I had read at some point that the pronunciation was Syzygy. And I don't know where I got that from. It might have been a dictionary. It might have been something. Maybe Peter David led me astray again. I don't know. Reading interviews with Jim Starlin, I think he pronounced it Syzygy. The way that it was phonetically transcribed in interviews was Syzygy. And then I actually looked it up online, and it's something more like Syzygy or something. I'll plug it in, as the audio.
Because it's a real word, apparently.
It's a real word, yes. It's
Syzygy.
Syzygy. Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy. Syzygy. Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy. Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy.
Syzygy. When three celestial bodies all lined up. We're going to have a little bit of trouble figuring out how to pronounce this. We should just be able to call him Darklock because that's the easy name that they gave us, a superhero, supervillain name, wherever you want to look at it. But we're not going to call him Darklock. No. We're going to call him Syzagi, Mr. Miyagi, whatever the fuck. We're going to call him whatever the hell we like, but that's who we're talking about.
Syzygy was the magic element. He was from a side story called The Price. He was enlisted out of that story so that he could become in a cast.
So anyway, yeah, that guy.
Yeah, so you loaned me this.
I loaned it
read
to you?
This exact copy.
Okay, so you don't have one of your own, though?
I do now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you, like that actual graphic novel.
I big boy. No, I do not have this graphic novel.
Okay. Well,
I would imagine this is worth quite a bit of money now.
Decent. Really? I mean, if you got a high grade one, sure. Mine isn't that high of a grade, so probably not. Maybe $20 or less.
I don't know, dude. I think
go ahead and crack it open and take a look at it, though. So, because since you've read it in a different presentation, I want you to be able to compare the two. I don't think Eclipse did additional printings. I think they just did the one run.
Their own bad.
Or maybe they assumed they were going to get multiple printings, and they were like, nah, one's enough.
Okay, yeah. So it's all black and white. It's I mean, yeah, it's like gray. It's not really black and white. It's almost like newspaper.
Yeah, it's definitely up from newsprint, but
Yeah,
it's
it's
not.
not. I mean, the color.
It's like when we talked about the Epic Illustrated Porsches that were in black and white, but it had nice heavy stock. And this is really like a slight upgrade from typical magazine stock at the time. This is above Savage Sword of Conan, but not like excessively so. And yeah, it's not rich blacks at all. Although to some degree you need that because the darker the art gets, also the darker the lettering gets, and it gets really tough to read. So it's a little hard for me to say whether or not they made a mistake with this. There's nothing on the inside front covers. It's a pretty basic presentation. It's not cardstock or anything. I have to wonder if maybe Starlin was a little disappointed by that presentation because I don't think it's terrible, but it's not as good as it being an epic. Certainly it's not, the stock isn't as good, but also like you read it in the Dynamic Forces Dreadstar, the beginning hardcover that came out. When did that come out?
I bought this in like 2016.
Yeah, but it'd been around before that.
Yeah,
there should
I
be a
think so.
copyright date in the indicia.
This one too says first printing.
I'm not sure if that one went into multiple printings either.
It says 2010.
2010. Okay, so 6 years after the fact.
Yeah. Dynamite Entertainments. Very nice book, though. Extremely nice paper quality. It's hardcover. You get a dust jacket. When you take this dust jacket off, it's an awesome black cover with like a, what's the opposite of embossed? Jim Starlin, Dreadstar at the beginning, and like a nice silver font.
Well, don't forget about that back cover with the sword.
Oh, yeah.
It turns out where that came from, he was developing the Metamorphosis Odyssey before Star Wars came out. And then once Star Wars came out, he realized that his lightsaber was going to have to be different from theirs. And he had found a Spanish pike head in an antique shop that was essentially that shape. And he turned that into the sword. And he was actually really happy that it happened because he feels like his sword is way more distinctive than a lightsaber anyway. But it would have happened if Star Wars hadn't come out while he was developing it because he needed to figure out something else since they stole his thunder essentially.
Well, didn't Thundar basically have lightsabers?
Yeah, but Thundar was definitely a Star Wars ripoff. Thundar was like 80, 81 or so. So they had time to rip off Star Wars by that point.
So when did the Metamorphosis Odyssey start?
What was it, 79, 80?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
I don't know. We already talked about that anyway. I don't know. I have to look it up.
Okay.
No, well, this should be 80 or I think this is 80 right here. So,
Right. So
Yeah.
yes. I literally just said it. October 1980.
Yeah,
So if the
yeah.
price came out in October 1980, then yeah, we get it back.
And they'd had gone through the whole Metamorphosis Odyssey.
When did A New Hope come out?
77.
77, yeah.
I don't know. If I had a property that was pretty similar to Star Wars and it was a photo finish, I'd probably say, I was working on this before Star Wars. I would say that too. So I'm not going to, anyway, we're not going to slander Jim Starlin.
Yeah. Mr. Fixit, what do you remember of the price? Having not read that in I don't know how long.
Not one thing.
Not one thing?
No.
Now, you remember it's the origin of, I'm going to go with his pronunciation, Syzygy Darklock. Nope. Okay. Now, you just read it, though. And this was your first time reading it ever? Or did you read it previously?
No, I read yours, motherfucker.
Oh, that's right. I keep forgetting.
Jesus
Oh,
Christ.
I'm sorry. Okay.
I read yours in like 1997. Probably.
Okay. And what did you think about it then?
It was awesome.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. I don't know. This is probably an exaggeration. I was always a very mainstream comic book reader. We might have talked about some of this in the other podcast too. I don't know. Go back and listen to that one, folks.
2018.
Yeah. I listen to, I read Marvel comic books. This stuff, just kind of blew me away. All this Dreadstar stuff. And I mean, I don't even think it's an argument. This isn't even the best Dreadstar stuff. The Metamorphosis Odyssey is not the best stuff. It's a lot. It's so much setup. And like you said, like you said earlier, we were talking, not being recorded. There's a lot of recap. Jim Starlin loves to do recaps. He did the same thing when he does the Adam Warlock stuff was the exact same way.
Every comic in the 1970s was somebody's first.
Right. There's a lot of repetitiveness, but you just have to realize these were published by these were published by two different publishers years apart. So that's why he was recapping. These you could find readily on a newsstand. These, hope you got lucky to find it, right? Like, I mean, it's not as easy to find all these things. So you had to do the recaps. But I was just blown away by this stuff. I didn't realize, I don't know, there's just...
Well, one of the nice things about the price is it's not recappy. That's like the one that's really completely self-contained.
That is absolutely true. Especially when I just now flipping through, I'd flipped back to the first part of the Metamorphosis Odyssey and was like, oh shit, like they don't explain hardly any of this when you get to the price. So that is true. But it's just, there's something different about these Dreadstar books, and there's just something different about them. And I know some of that has to do with when I read them and things like that too. But discounting all that, there's just something different about these books. I don't know what it is. This isn't normal. This is not a normal superhero space fantasy. I don't know. That's not what this is.
It's not Guardians of the Galaxy at all.
No. Well, it's not Star Wars. It's a little more surface level. I mean, you want to try and dig down a little bit into Star Wars, and it kind of falls apart.
I think there's more Star Wars in the Dreadstar comic book series, but the the stuff that's tagged as Metamorphosis Odyssey, it's clearly much darker. I think that the Michael Moorcock influence is definitely still there. I think that some of the high fantasy stuff, even though he said, like, he tried to do it as a fairy tale, he realized his sensibilities are too dark for his fairy tale. But the fantasy element is still there and still strong. And it's not family friendly, galaxy far, far away kind of stuff. It's more dark fantasy. It's heavier stuff for older people, especially the price.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, this was just what are we talking about now? I don't want to start saying
the price.
But I know, but I don't want to. Are we recapping the price?
I think we should do a quick recap, Bryce.
Okay.
Yeah, because the truth of it is, I know that Jim Starlin has fans, but I bet you a lot of the people that are fans of Jim Starlin are fans of the Marvel stuff, and they can probably tell you all about Captain Marvel, Warlock, Silver Surfer, Infinity Gauntlet, all that kind of stuff. Not necessarily a huge crossover. And Mr. Fixit here, Mr. Fixit loves Jim Starlin, but he doesn't remember the price, and he hasn't read it in ages. So,
I can remember aspects of Dreadstar, like Plan M and
sure,
like all that stuff. And I remember really enjoying that because you gave me, I think you loaned me that same copy of The Price. I think I read it and
and keep in mind this is 25 years ago too. So,
and then I believe I have a copy, and then you were like, well, you need to read Dreadstar, and you had a shitload of the floppies. Mm-hmm. I just remember you gave me like a stack of them, and I remember distinctly sitting in my room listening to Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction. I was reading them, and I think I would blow through like 6 or 7 at a time and just devour them. And I remember enjoying them immensely. I remember that was, but see, I wasn't so much like Mac where I just read all Marvel, because I would read all Marvel and heavy metal and more of the adult fantasy stuff.
Sure.
Didn't really read DC I didn't really read any DC stuff, but if I wasn't reading Marvel, I was definitely reading heavy metal.
But it is funny because, again, you are a Starlin guy. I know you read The Cult.
Yeah.
I know you read Cosmic Odyssey.
Oh, okay, you caught me. I'm like, I did read that
but this
stuff.
is very much like Starlin is an avowed Marvel guy. Even when he works at DC,
those books were not very DC to me.
That's what I'm saying. Is even when he works at DC, and he's worked at them fairly often.
His Cult was really good,
but he's doing Marvel type stuff at DC.
Yeah.
He's not really being a DC guy. He's a Marvel guy who happens to be working at DC at that particular point in time, as I would say.
Yeah, because I mean, you're right. The Cosmic Odyssey was fantastic.
Yeah.
I remember you loaned me.
And that's the funny thing with DC too, is they do have science fiction and science fantasy characters, but they've never, and they've tried. They tried as recently as like Ran Thanagar War, Infinite Crisis, all that kind of stuff. They've always had sci-fi characters, but they've never had the cosmology that Marvel has, where you have like these levels upon levels of how big the cosmos get, and these guys are over here doing stuff, these guys are over here. Really, once you get past Thanagar, Ran, the Dominion, some of the Legion stuff, Krypton, which is dead, of course, Dead World. So it's like once you get too far beyond that,
like the Wall of Knowledge or some shit like that.
You're talking about the Source Wall, but that's getting the new gods. And once again, what's that? That's a Marvel guy going DC, giving them Marvel style cosmology. And still, let's be honest, outside of Darkseid, nobody gives a shit. Where with Thor and Hercules and all their cosmic people, they just Marvel has a way better setup for their cosmic stuff, and people are more invested in the cosmology. They're more invested in the various universes or galaxies, whatever you want to call it. The spaceship. The spaceship matters at Marvel in a way they cannot make it happen at DC. They're not built for it.
I distinctly remember, one of my favorite images in my head still is when Thanos has the Infinity Stones and he has all the different gods frozen. Love, hate, Master Order,
Living Tribunal, and all that.
I just remember. Did he even snap Living Tribunal?
I think he did. I know he confronted the Living Tribunal because I had not had much of experience with that character outside of Ohatmu, and so that's one of the first times I think I'd ever seen him in an actual comic book, as opposed to him being an entry.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're recapping now.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to go like super deep or anything, but yeah.
Well, let me just read this. I'm going to read halfway down the opening. Well, the first, it talks about how Earth has vanished in 1980 in a puff of nuclear smoke. So let's go down to the galaxy itself is a strange and brutal place, torn by some 200 years of war between two cosmic superpowers, which call themselves the Monarchy and the Instrumentality. The Monarchy is a 12th-century-old dynasty founded and maintained by the royal and highly inbred families of Diabolu and its armies. The Instrumentality is a powerful political, mystical, religious order which rules its half of the galaxy through fear and damnation, heavenly edict, occasional mass inquisitions, and an army of holy warriors. The Great War broke out when the two superpowers each laid claim to a small world named Nimbus. Nimibus. Nimibus? A lot of these I've never said some of this shit.
It's a very small world. It won't come up again. No worries.
Gotcha. Seeing as both governments had God and the might of several hundred worlds on their side, they decided the only way to settle the dispute was an all-out war, which continues to this day. Over the last 200 years, the two giants continued the star system spanning conflict, but adjusted its existence. Only the outer planets ever really became involved in the war. For the inner planets, it's been business as usual, except for the occasional government announcement of a victory victory or disaster in one of the out colonies. Altarix, which is a world nestled deep within the protective folds of the Instrumentality's immensity. In fact, Altarix is the home world of the Order of the Veiltor, the Instrumentality's mystical arm. So that's where the story starts. And it starts where they're following he's a lawyer or an accountant? He's a lawyer, right?
No, I think it was an accountant, actually.
Yeah, you're right. I think he's an accountant. So
yeah, what he was an auditor. He audited for the church, for the Instrumentality. So he was sort of like a financial inquisitor, essentially. And he's like, people hate what I do, but I'm just getting money for the church. Why is that bad? Why would people be so mad at me?
And so we're following this gentleman as he's walking home, and then as he's getting close to the shadows, he sort of feels something is near him, and then he gets snatched up and he goes, "Eee!" and he screams. From there, we cut to a dude who is in a very much sort of sanctum sanctorum looking meditative room, and this is Bishop Darklock. And they're asking, who is this chick's name?
I think he's actually a High Bishop Darklock.
That's right.
I thought I didn't remember that aspect. And since we've got High Lord Papal, who is the guy who leads the Instrumentality, they have a High Bishop. It's like, oh, he was a High Bishop. Oh, wow, he must have been way up there then, in my mind, because of my indoctrination into this whole thing.
So anyway, he senses like a disturbance, and he realizes that something terrible has happened to his brother. He goes to the morgue, and they're just basically like, there's nothing left of this dude. He's got, torn to pieces. But they kind of just say that this was like a random happening. Like, oh, sorry, dude, your guy got knocked off. There was nothing to it. But he senses that there was something to this, right?
Well, and also his body was just damaged in ways that wouldn't have happened through animals, through human beings. There's no realistic, logical explanation for this. The savagery of the attack, he just doesn't buy into it. And he also is aware that the church is prone to just hand-waving stuff that they don't want to confront.
So he goes and he speaks to Lord High Papal and asks him for basically a leave of absence to sort his brother's affairs. And he says, so he's asking, if that's okay. He had nobody. So all of these burdens are going to fall on his shoulders. He needs to take some time away from the order to kind of sort this shit out. And so this is from Lord High Papal himself. He says, of course, I understand perfectly. So as a priest of the Holy Order, I offer my most sincere condolences to you in this dark hour. As temporal head of the sacred Instrumentality, I grant you leave of office for one lunar cycle. And as a fellow mystic of the Brotherhood, I strongly advise you to remember well the church's stand on its bishops using its powers granted to them on non-instrumentality sanctioned ventures. And he says, I beg your pardon, Lord Papal, I'm not sure I understand your meaning. All I'm saying is that your brother met his death under strange and horrible circumstances which smack of demonic activity. This holy office doesn't want any reports coming back to it about one of its Lord High Bishops indulging in unauthorized act of vengeance. Do I make myself clear? He says, of course, I understand perfectly. And then, oh man, where does it go from there? Hold on. And then he says, then go, Lord High Bishop Darklock. May the gods of the Instrumentality watch over you. And then Darklock whispers to himself, you mean keep an eye on me? Thank you, Your Holiness, as he walks out.
Well, and then the Cardinal Spider shows up, right?
Right, and he's basically like, why did you grant this dude leave? Like, why would you do this? He's one of the most powerful people in the entire Instrumentality. And then he says, because like Syzygy, I too sensed the dark forces involved in his brother's demise, but my powers are more acute, and my experience is greater in such matters than our young bishop. I immediately recognize it as the work of the infidel Taurus Kilgarn, the black sorcerer of the dread Veil Plane, and the offspring of demon and woman. As you know, his might is legend, and his powers dwarf even my own. That is why the Instrumentality has seen fit to leave him in peace, as long as he leaves us in peace. So he's basically letting Darklock go confront this dude so that he can get murked, because Papal sees him as a threat.
And see, this is something I want to address too, is Angel Medina, future artist for the Dreadstar comic book, was in town, and I talked with him, and one of the things that came up was Mongol, because I got him to do a Mongol piece for him. And what was fun about that is he told me he'd never actually drawn Mongol. He always wanted to. He loved Thanos. He's drawn Thanos a lot, not only for pieces, like the piece that I picked up for Mr. Fixit, but professionally, he drew the Warlock and the Infinity Watch book when it was first getting started, right?
I was about to say, yeah.
So he's got a good familiarity with Thanos, and of course he's worked with Lord Papal because of Dreadstar, but he had never got to do Mongol, and he wanted to kind of fit, now the way he put it is he just wanted to do DC's Thanos since he'd done Marvel Thanos. And I pointed out, well, you also did Lord Papal, who is sort of Dreadstar universe Thanos. And he didn't seem to quite be on the same page with that.
Really?
And
they look pretty similar.
They look pretty similar, agreed. And I would say too, clearly Mongol was designed to essentially be Thanos for the DC universe, but I think the way that character is played is so different that really it's mostly their physical mass that's similar, as opposed to their motivations, their method of operations, all that kind of stuff. It's really just they look alike. And they both look like Darkseid, and so it's a nice way of not, they're all Darkseid, but I don't think they all are Darkseid. And I think, like, you look at this sequence, for instance, Lord Papal is running a political game. He's slowly been working his way up through this religious organization. He's setting people against one another. Huh?
He's a schemer.
Yeah, but he's not.
Thanos is a schemer.
Yeah, but they're not. Thanos is a much more bold.
They literally have 2 books where he's scheming to get all the jewels.
Right, but he's actually physically going out there and getting this stuff too. Where Papal is a little bit more of a behind-the-scenes guy, and so I really don't think that, aside from some physical similarities, I don't think they're that similar as characters. But I'm curious what you think. I still remember
wherever they talk about they have all the prisoners, and he fucking.
Wait, that's not even happening yet. We're not going there. All I was trying to say is I don't feel like Lord Papal is necessarily a Thanos ripoff.
I wouldn't say ripoff. I'd say what do you call it? Homage.
Okay, but you think they're similar enough to where they might as well be spoken of as though they're the same character?
Cut from the same cloth. Maybe different shapes, maybe different uses, but still cut from the same cloth. They still feel very similar.
He's a man of the cloth.
Yeah, so yeah, they're very similar. And I would even say Mongo is in a way. They're all very dissimilar, but I wouldn't say an exact copy of each other. I wouldn't say they follow the same pathways, but I would say they're pretty similar.
Yeah.
I mean...
And again, I'm basing this off of a Lord Papal that I haven't read. I remember he distinctly stuck in my head while reading it. Because I remember there's that one great cover where he's in the front. Isn't there like a cover where it's his face? Like a face of his cover?
The extreme close-up.
Yeah, the extreme close-up of him. It's very Thanos looking, kind of. I think he even has his fist clenched.
We're talking 2 characters drawn by the same artist who have similar stature. I mean, I don't know.
Well, and I guess if you're looking at Darklock here, to a large degree, he resembles Dreadstar. They're both painted by the same guy, but I wouldn't say they're the same guy.
Yeah, but I think once you get into like creature creation, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think he looks like Dreadstar. I don't know who he used for this photo reference. He's a different dude.
I do. It's Joseph Rubinstein.
Okay. So Joe Rubinstein does not look like...
inker. Yeah.
He doesn't look like...
and this Sister Marion, I believe her name is, who is his confidant. That was, I believe, a woman that Rubinstein was dating at the time. Might have married, I'm not sure. I don't think so. But I think it was his girlfriend at the time. So, yeah, there's definitely clear models, and those models are not Jim Starlin.
Right. All I'm saying is, at some point, like if you get 2 cars and you paint them the same color and they're the same class of car, they're going to look a lot alike. Like almost all cars look about the same. The front bumpers are different, the taillights are different, but everything in between, they're all kind of about the same. So sometimes I think we're just looking at 2 guys who are kind of the same color. They're the same size, shape, demeanor, but I don't really... The stuff Papal's doing in this is, I don't know, it is not super Thanos to me. Maybe you want to blend Thanos with the Magus and you get a little Papal, I guess. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. Anyway, did I pop your Papal? Okay, so Syzygy Darklock now is on the hunt for who murdered his brother. He summons a demon who, man, I can't even pronounce this. Belgzard?
And Sister Marion was helping him here, or he was doing this on his own?
I think she was like, don't do this shit.
Right. But it was like he uses her as a spiritual or psychic anchor when he's casting spells.
Right.
And she's, of course, saying, you're on a bad path. And he's like, yeah, I know, but will you go on with me? And she's like, yeah, I kind of have to go on. We've been doing this for too long.
And she's madly in love with him, too.
Yeah, they're really madly in love with each other.
Right.
But, of course, they've been chased because they're people of the cloth.
Yep. So, anyway, he goes and he summons this guy. He's got a cat head. We like cat-headed people in here.
That thing between his legs ain't no cat dingus, though.
Swinging a hammer.
I respect Jim Starlin's commitment to cock. Like, there's a lot of cock in these books.
Yeah. But it's an awesome scene where he's in the middle of a pentagram and he summons this giant cat dude. But it's like space, and you can just tell this is on a canvas because this is all painted. This shit looks fucking great, dude.
Well, I'm thinking about it too. Now this might have been a situation where he's on like a black board or black canvas and he's coloring the whites on it, and that's why it looks the way that it does. With the Metamorphosis Odyssey, it was oil painting. He pointed out that Dinah Grajunas, who he eventually married, taught him how to paint it in oil. He never got the hang of acrylics. It just became a big mess. And she was also the basis for... No, she wasn't the basis for it. It was an earlier girlfriend of his who was the basis for Wispar, the pixie girl, which is funny because, again, he marries Dinah Grajunas, but he's painting his ex-girlfriend topless while they know each other. So I'm wondering about the timelines on that. But great game if he actually got the ex-girlfriend to pose nude for him for that. And I have to assume she did. And by the way, her picture is in that hardcover book that I brought with me, the Starlin biography, and she's pretty. They're both pretty. Don't get me wrong.
Beetlejuice, I don't know. Catman agrees to help Syzygy attain the power to fight. What is that guy's name again? Who's the main bad?
Kilgrave or something like that?
So he's like, yeah, it's Kilgrave. Killgrave, but you're going to need like some big time power.
You're going to have to level up.
To level this dude, right? So he's like, I'm going to take you and show you a place of unlimited power so you can get this power. And it's basically like, what? Well, you know, what, how do I know you're not going to trick me? Why are you helping me? And basically, Killgrave, this dude, this demon used to be under the control of Killgrave, and the dude basically just tortured him. And he's like, I fucking hate this guy so much. I want you to get jacked up and go in this dude, right? So he does. He gives him this tap of unlimited power, but gives him just enough to just decimate his body. When he comes out of this like power absorption phase, he's missing, I think, both legs. He's missing an arm. His nose is blown off. His face is blown off. But he's just like freaking out because he's like just power.
It's one of the best things I've ever seen Jim Starlin illustrate. Is he's just like you said. He looks like zombies have gnawed on him, and he's still like screaming, "But the power! I have the power!" And also the rationale for that too was that he feels like the cat demon could have prevented that from happening, but he had to discipline the cat demon a few times to get him to do what he wanted to, and he wasn't going to forget that. So he thinks he left the eye open a little longer just to fuck him up a little bit.
So next,
plus it's cool because he's got he goes to the hospital and they wrap him up in bandages, and it's very abstract. So much of the painting is I wouldn't say it's photorealistic because it's definitely very romanticized. It's very Middle Ages looking shit. But then you put those bandages on, it's almost like a Frank Miller chiaroscuro thing. It's so abstract, but it works very well in this context. Yeah, it's very horrific.
You've got his teeth poking out between the bandages.
It's very Darkman, actually, when you think about it. I wonder if Darkman wasn't influenced by this.
They also explain that not only has he's lost like both legs, he lost an arm, his face is all fucked up, but he's also grown like 2 feet. So he's like this giant now. And then afterwards, after he's discharged from the hospital, he and Sister Marion sort of have a talk about how like, are we gonna like finally do this or whatever? And he's like, ain't happening. So like basically, sorry, like the time has passed, but he
I don't know if that's the case at all. The impression I was under was, look, I got to finish this thing that I'm working on.
Well, I think that right, yeah.
And then we're gonna have a serious talk about.
I guess to me though, he's not ever going to be done. So he says
no, but I don't know if that is the case. I think what he's saying is that I've done this to myself. I've done this to avenge my brother and kill this guy. And then once I'm done with this, then we can talk.
Okay.
And also, I still need you. I mean, he's saying literally, I don't really need you to anchor me anymore because I'm so fucking powerful. But like, I'd still like you around for moral support.
I mean, he almost literally says that. I would appreciate it if you would still anchor me, even though I no longer need such aids. Of course I will, but what about afterwards? What will you need then? Will you still need me? We've worked together for 8 years now. They've been 8 years of biting back things our hearts have yearned to voice. And he says, yes, I think the hour draws near when we must cast a light on those feelings, sister. But the time is not now. I cannot put off what must be done, but I will return as soon as possible, and then we'll sit and talk of our hearts and those feelings we share within ourselves.
Well, there is one key element that we have to talk about, because before he's out of the hospital, he has to do a certain thing to be mobile.
Oh, yeah. He gets all these he gets a like robotic eye, robotic limbs, and they're like, we've ordered synthetic skin to go over these, and he was like, yeah, don't need it. Like, I think he knows he looks badass, so he doesn't need all the skin to cover the leg. Okay, so then he goes and he like pops into Killraven's lair, and the first thing he did is just blow both of his legs off from the knee down.
By the way, he looks cool. The evil sorcerer guy is a cool looking dude with the big arched eyebrows, bushy, and he's got like this little griffin thingy that he talks to, and the griffin thingy tries to lunge at Darklock to stop him from killing his master, and he's just like smoked immediately. He's like, nope, you're gone too. Bam, nothing but feathers.
I know that he kind of explains in exposition exactly what's going on, so I'm trying to just read what he says. So Killraven basically explains that
It's not Killraven though.
It's not it's Killgrave.
Yeah, Killraven's the Marvel War of the Worlds character.
He's like Conan, right?
Killgrave.
P. Craig Russell and Don McGregor.
I always thought a space guy.
No,
Conan.
it's
like Conan.
It's Taurus
like
Kilgaren.
Kilgaren?
That's
Okay.
what it was.
He's a little stump of a man right now, so it doesn't really matter that much. It's not going to be around too
so
much.
He blew his legs off. He basically says he has set Darklock's whole like life in motion because he was fucking around doing some shit that these dudes are always doing, peering into the future, whatnot, and he basically uncovered the entire future and realized that this huge cataclysmic event was going to happen, and there was only one way to stop it, basically, and it was, or not to stop.
No, it's the opposite. Is that we could go to a place of like a utopic existence if only certain things happen, but there's a real good chance those things weren't going to happen unless somebody helped to make them happen.
Right. So he was the one that like influenced Darklock going into the instrumentality to begin with. He's the one who killed his brother to encourage him to get out.
But also he didn't know which of the brothers was going to be the one that was going to be pivotal, and he just basically picked one, and the other one got killed. So if he picked wrong, they were already all fuck.
And then he shows this future to Darklock, which fucking infuriates him because he gets to see how he dies. He sees everything, and he's cursed with this knowledge. So he evaporates this dude. I mean, just absolutely lits this guy up. There's this awesome splash page that sort of shows. It's got all the characters' heads that are going to be involved in the story, sort of cascading from top to bottom with the sword coming in the side, and then this cool like swoop of Syzygy Darklock thing. It's just awesome, dude.
It is really sweet, but also I really do wonder about those characters we haven't never gotten to in all these years.
Right, that guy and that guy. Anyway, so he's mad. He knows all this stuff. Vaporizes the guy. I can't remember now. Why does he conjure?
Yeah. So what the dude tells him?
It's a soul for a soul.
Yeah. What he tells him is, look, I know you're really powerful right now. You managed to blow my legs off. I get that, but you're not powerful enough. What you got to do, you got to be, full fucking Saiyan, right? So you're gonna have to do this shit. You're gonna have to conjure this demon, but you're gonna have to give up the thing that means the most to you in order to get that. It's very, very Infinity War, right?
Soul for a soul.
Just because they took from comic books doesn't mean they only took from Marvel Comics, folks.
So he basically summons this like snake cobra centaur looking guy. He sends Marion in, and
before he does that, he's like, what would you do? What price would you be willing to pay to ensure that peace and love and understanding, the age of Aquarius comes in? She's like, well, I'm a person of the cloth. I always put the needs of others ahead of myself. I would, of course, sacrifice my life, even in the most horrible of ways, if it meant that things were going to be so much more wonderful and we were going to usher in this messianic age and yada yada. And he's like, oh, good. Shove.
Clunk pushes her in the room.
And then she realizes, oh, this wasn't a hypothetical. He never really was prone to hypotheticals. I'm dying now. And it's not going to be a good death. I mean, he's hearing like screaming and crunching and shit from behind the door.
Yeah, where does he? On the other side of the door, a wretched soul weeps from one eye and tries to block out the prayers that will always haunt him. Prayers that changed all too quickly into screams of pain that stretch the seconds into years, minutes into lifetimes. Finally, the last choking gasp signals the end of Sister Marion's agony, and disquieting stillness lingers for a moment. But then the noise begins again. A different now, more horrible. Screams, no screams now, only the sounds of dead flesh being torn, bitten, sucked on, and swallowed. For centuries, the foul noise of grisly feasts taking place in the next room continues. Then that ends too, and that's when he walks in the door.
And claims even more power.
Yep. And he says, it is done. Lord High Bishop Syzygy Darklock is dead. So let the heavens beware for now. Amid the stars walks Syzygy the Dark, slayer of gods, friend of the sword, and mentor of Dreadstar the Mighty. I am the future, and I am here. Pretty gangster. And then he goes and he quits. He leaves.
He takes an extended leave of absence from the church. An indefinite leave of absence, essentially.
Yeah. So then his little, the bishop's like, hey.
Cardinal Spider, yeah.
He's like, hey, the cardinal. He's like, hey, congratulations, Lord High Papal. And he's like, what for? And he's like, he's gone. You got him to leave. And he's like, could you not sense how powerful he is now? Are you out of your mind? Nothing about this is good. Like, he just fucking starts screaming at this guy. It's so great.
Grabs him by his collar and just jerks him around like a rag doll.
Anyway, so from there, he travels to, what is the name of the planet that Dreadstar is on this whole time?
Cat People Planet.
Kaldor. Kaldor comes into view.
Not Catdor, Kaldor.
Not cat at all. Kaldor. So then he's on Kaldor awaiting the Dreadstar to come find him. That was like the worst recap ever. You're going to cut a lot of that out. That's all right.
No, it was bad. It was bad. So anyway, I'm going to just throw this at you again as a reminder of how terrible the slave labor graphics presentations of these stories were. He just made a face like he smelled something bad.
Can you smell what the Rock is cooking?
So this is the SLG Jim Starlin's Dreadstar Volume 1, The Metamorphosis Odyssey. This paper stock and printing, it's black and white. I guess you'd call this black and white. I don't even want to call this black and white. This is like shit brown and off shit brown. You can't see anything. Like this is the most, it's mud. This is muddied up. I would be furious.
I don't think Mr. Fixit's ever seen that volume.
I've seen this one.
Yeah?
Yeah, you showed it to me one time. We were making fun of this.
Yeah, I mean, we may have looked at it. I'm sure I've seen that years and years and years ago too.
I'd still read it.
I mean, that's all you can do is read it. Can't look at it. So when did that SLG copy come out?
I want to say early 2000s.
What?
What was that other series that Starlin did with the character that looked
Weird
like
the Reluctant Warrior or Warlock or something?
Which one? Not
Weird the Reluctant Warrior?
No. The one where there's multi versions of him. It's almost like, again, almost a Thanos.
The Weird?
No. Creed? No, Creech.
Oh,
no.
Breed.
What? Breed.
Breed, okay.
Breed.
Well, yeah, Lord Sinar from Hardcore Station is also a Thanos-alike, yes.
And so Breed was Thanos in a tuxedo. Because I remember Breed ran around in a tuxedo a lot, didn't he? Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, the Dynamite edition is a lot better.
Didn't you have prints of these?
I have the Metamorphosis Odyssey prints, yeah.
I remember you showing them to me one time. Oh, the color looks fantastic.
So these are various versions of the price. This is not the version of the price that I read. This is the version of the price that I read. I read Dreadstar Annual number 1 of 1, published 1983, $2. This is clearly in the format of a comic book, and you can see the cover for the price is in the center, but it's very Silver Age DC with our grinning cast of characters holding up the picture to let you know, look, this is a representation for you. Don't forget the back cover. Don't forget the back cover. Same back cover, slightly different version.
How's it a different version?
I think I read this too. I think you gave me this. It's in full color.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. Even the Dynamite stuff is in full color.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Marvel owns the rights to the color version, or maybe they were upset with the changes made to the artwork because there are no cocks in the Marvel Comics version, the Epic Comics version. They move, the mystic mists around to make sure to cover the cat cock. Much more grisly when he gets his legs and arms missing, everything else too. But I like it even better. I really like the color on that, and it is very much Ted Turner Turnerization, colorization, but it really kind of works with his art, and I actually like that. This is my preferred presentation of the story because especially the gore is really much more striking. The blood is more striking.
Now, this is just issue 1, right?
They only made the one annual.
That's the whole thing. It's
a reprint of the entire story with alterations and with colorization.
I think I own this copy. I think I own
You,
this.
I wouldn't shock me. I'm sure you've come across it at some point over the years.
I might have bought it from you from like your cheapy box at one time. Oh. Yeah, but I think I might own one or two of those, like that same copy.
So now, yeah, we should get into this now. So you were part of the fundraiser from Ominous Press when they were going to do their omnibuses or their omnibuses and stuff. And we both thought
that was all wrong.
That was all wrong. Okay.
No, you're wrong.
So what's the deal?
So I did a Omnibus Press did 2 Kickstarters. One was for the Art of Jim Starlin hardcover.
The Black Book.
Yeah,
I think you called
the
it?
Black Book.
And did you get that one?
I did get that.
Okay. And I've gotten my version. This is the version that was printed by Aftershock. They did an original printing of this, and for whatever reason I missed it. I don't know why. I think I wanted it, and either I couldn't afford it at that time, or it was it never came to me. Like I ordered it and I never actually got it. That's been known to happen. I mostly get mail order these days, and often I will not get stuff with the mail order, and I have a record of that. But the people I was getting mail order from at that time would not be in business anymore. Oh, these are definitely not the same book then. Okay. Then
they're whipping them out. See who got the bigger book.
Well, no, okay.
But it might have also been I might have been going to a comic shop and it might have just never come in. The comic shop might have closed. It was a weird time, especially after I closed my shop. There was a weird gray area, so I'm not sure what happened with that. Well, actually, I think they're just 2 different books.
I think these are 2 just completely different.
Yeah, because mine is The Art of Jim Starlin, A Life in Words and Pictures, and like I said, Aftershock came up with this not that long ago, just a few years ago. Yeah, and this is a Art of Jim Starlin Ominous Press Black Book with Thanos on the cover, sort of kind of obscured by shadow, the shadow of a large elephant, or not elephant, octopus.
Yeah, this Art of Jim Starlin book is fucking incredible, dude. This is great. A Life in Words and Pictures. So this actually has like narration to it. Does that one have any fucking narration, really? It's like
there's copy in here.
Yeah, but it's not like about Jim's life and stuff like that.
Well, because I read through a chunk of that trying to get information for this recording. It's not in depth.
Okay.
Like I got more information typically from the interviews I read than I did from the actual book about his life. It's very straightforward. There's like big gaps where he's just not talking about stuff. So it's a little frustrating, to be honest with you. That's not to say I'm not sorry I have it. I like the book.
No, it's really, I think it's huge.
Yeah, I need yours too. So here's my problem. Like I've never done a Kickstarter. I've never done a Kickstarter. I still I'm a very conservative in that way. I want to buy a book that's published and mass distributed. I don't really like buying a local indie bullshit. I want to buy something that was nationally distributed. It's real to me if that happens. If it's in the previews, if it's out there for anybody to get a hold of, then it's real. Whereas this little niche thing, this boutique thing, this vanity thing, it's just not real to me. So, and also I don't want to deal with the whole thing where I'm waiting on somebody to send me a package whenever they get around to doing it.
You're a fucking idiot. You just said 5 seconds ago. Sometimes you just order shit and then it never shows up.
Yeah, but I'm also not a fucking patron where on our Spawn Owner podcast, I often defend Rob Liefeld, but he's also one of the most notorious guys for doing a big Kickstarter and never actually getting the book out that he's supposed to get out.
Then you get your money back.
Indefinitely. So you do get your money back.
Yes, you get your money back.
Okay, because I've heard people talk like they never got their money back.
No. Oh, no. No, now, when it comes to when funding now, like, if it gets funded...
Hey, this is a 3 on it. Why is that a 3?
I have no fucking clue.
Okay, I want this too. I need to get it. But I've never done a Kickstarter, and so that this came, I think, specifically from the Kickstarter, and therefore, since I didn't do the Kickstarter, I didn't have the access to this book. I kept having this fantasy that I was going to go to a convention and buy it directly from Jim Starlin.
What's on the back of it? Hold on, you're flopping it.
Just the price.
Okay, cool. I'm at the image, but whatever.
Oh, it's Warlock. Oh, not a Warlock.
Dreadstar.
Dreadstar. Fairly recently. A lot of this book is apparently his commissions, his commission art collected, and that's cool. It's good presentation. It's definitely better than looking at a little bullshit JPEG on Comic Art Fans and shit.
Yeah.
So I want to get the copy of that too. But yeah, my romantic notion was I would just go to a con and buy it from him directly and put the money directly into his hands. But then COVID happens, and I haven't been to any con that he's been at. He's been at some cons in the post COVID era, but I haven't run into him, and there's no guarantee he'd have any copies of the shit now anyway. So I need to go ahead and get me something some way somehow.
So here, let me get the exact detail. I know where we're going with this, so I'm trying to get to Kickstarter is the worst fucking app. Show the shit I did. Okay, so that was in 2000. Fucking when was this shit? You don't put years on anything? Of course you wouldn't.
It's gotta be late teens.
2018.
Okay.
So that was Jim Starlin's art book and illustrated novella. So that was Mind Games, Hardcore Station, and the Black Book. So yeah, I backed that.
And it was only later that you did the Dreadstar one.
Right. And then his next one.
And I still don't have Mind Games either.
Because that one funded. So it's sitting over there. That one funded.
And like we talked,
fast.
me and Fixit drove to Dallas and talked to him about it, and I still haven't gotten a copy myself because, like, again, he didn't have any copies at the show, as I recall.
No.
And so I was going to buy it from him the next time I saw him, and it's been 5-6 years now.
It's been that long since that show?
Since the Kickstarter, it has been.
Oh.
And since me and Mac recorded.
I think he talked about
and
it
I think he did, because the thing is, we did the podcast about the Metamorphosis Odyssey in 2018, and I'd already done the interview because I have segments of the interview in the podcast. So it was definitely like 2018, 2017.
I remember him.
We probably saw him in 2018, and I recorded the podcast there that same year.
And I think he even kind of promoted it a little bit there.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, okay.
Well, he and I toward the end of our interview with him, he started talking about his more recent stuff, and he included that. Okay. But I don't think he had the physical copies on him at that time.
So his next one was for Dreadstar versus the Inevitable, which is where the main villain looks like Donald Trump or whatever. He got a lot of press for that. That Kickstarter was a shit show.
Okay.
It took forever to get the books out. Like the printer, I think there was an issue. There were a couple of issues with the printer where they said they were getting pages back and they did not like the look of it. And they were like, "Look, we know you guys are frustrated. This does not look good. We are not sending out subpar shit." But that only goes for so long. And then
one thing he talks about is like one of the best times of his creative life was when he was working on Epic Illustrated with Archie Goodwin
I'm sorry, it was Dreadstar Returns.
Right. And
Sorry.
Joe Duffy, when it was very difficult back then to take painted artwork and put it on a printed page. There was no scanners. They had to get photographers to take a picture of the painting and use that to actually generate printed copies. And he was often unhappy with those. And I remember in the podcast we talked about there's one chapter of the Metamorphosis Odyssey that looks bad. And that was like the one time they didn't send the shit back. But one thing he loved about them is there were like 3 guys who were apparently doing photography for Marvel at that time period. And if he didn't like it, they would go and they'd get the pictures reshot to make sure that it was to his satisfaction. So he does care about his reproduction, with the exception of those goddamn Slave Labor Graphics editions.
That was a quick.
Yeah, I think he just wanted to get the shit in print again, and he was already having a relationship with them because they were doing the weird miniseries with him. But yeah, those are fucking awful.
Yeah, it funded in May of 2020, and I don't think it was September of 2021 before I actually got my book.
Damn, so like a year and a half almost.
Yeah, and it was just, at first it was printing problems, then it was COVID problems, then it was more COVID problems, and then it was like radio silence, and then Jim Starlin started going out to cons and selling the shit at the cons.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, all the people who paid to get the shit printed are like, "Where's our shit at?" So you're telling me I could just go to a con, and then they started popping up on Amazon, and the fucking backers got really pissed off.
Right.
Like really, really pissed
And my
off.
understanding is that he got a certain number of copies as the creator.
Right, so he was just taking them out to cons. Whereas Omnibus, it's really Omnibus Press's fault, I guess. There's so many sub companies and these things. It starts to get a little murky. But like, it's almost like they didn't have enough people to pack the fucking boxes.
Yeah.
Like it was literally taking and matching the order with and these things can get a little confusing too, because there are like tiers that unlock the more you go, and then if you back to a certain
like you went into a
get this
basket and
prize.
clicked a couple of boxes. It's like, okay, they're just going to see what you just placed as your order.
Well, no, it is. But as if you were the person packing the box, you're like, okay, this guy got this and this. He also needs to get digital links to those. He got the T-shirt and a medium. He got the signed Dreadstar print, but not that Dreadstar print or that Dreadstar that print or that Dreadstar print. It's that Dreadstar print. And then because we funded to this level, we got, I think Bart Sears did some Dreadstar stuff.
Yeah,
they
he
had
did one
all
of the
these
covers.
dudes who did all these like covers. So they have to include how many of those funded. So packing the box starts to get a little confusing. And then people could have just paid $400 and got everything, And then we were getting these like infinity gems at certain levels too. I mean, it's confusing as shit. Like, I mean, I understand it's difficult. It just took way too fucking long.
Yeah.
And I said a second ago, Dreadstar Inevitable. That's what is currently being funded on. So when I open up my account, it shows that at the top. So that's why I said it. I apologize. That's currently being funded, but it's now not through Omnibus. It's through like Monkey Wrench.
And what the fuck is Monkey Wrench?
I don't know. But see, Omnibus also had, I think it was Creative Inc. was another thing too. So it could have, they could have just rebranded a name because they fucked up the last Kickstarter so bad. It totally could have been it. Because this is now the first Kickstarter Monkey Wrench has ever done. And they're doing like fucking Dreadstar book that's got $200,000 in pre-order. Right? Like it seems a little strange.
Right.
So it totally could have just been a rebranding. Like we did.
So it is still a Kickstarter, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's just we were a different
What
company.
comes with that Kickstarter?
So that's a good question. Let's take a look.
Because again, Romantic Notions, I don't have any of this shit. Any of the stuff that's been done through Ominous Press. The book I have is the Aftershock, not Ominous Press. I don't have any of this stuff. And as something of a Dreadstar completist, it kind of started to make me itch a little bit.
So yeah, you get Dreadstar the Inevitable. You can get the Dreadstar Returns book, which that's like a new cover. That's
Oh
pretty
yeah,
nice.
well, and that's the same as the image on the back of your book.
Oh, it is, yeah. But see, this is the cover to mine. Watch, it's gonna be the same. I just am spacing out. No, see, that's totally. This Dreadstar Returns is totally different. You want to flip through that?
I can.
No spoilers. Let me see what else, dude. This is a pretty sweet timeline of events to walk you through all the Dreadstar stuff. It's pretty rad. People can't see that because this is a podcast. Preview pages. So for $20, $20 extra, I think you can get the Returns graphic novel. For $50, you get them both. So you get Returns and the Inevitable. But there are these combos. If you wanted just the Inevitable and you've already got the Returns, then you can get a T-shirt instead. I don't even know what this is. You can get a 16-month Dreadstar calendar. This is an Epic Comics #1 signed by Jim Starlin plus Dreadstar versus the Inevitable. You can get an Infinity Gauntlet trade paperback signed by Jim Starlin. Archive quality lithograph. I think that's the cover to that book, right?
No, it's the back cover. It was Lord High Papal. It's the back cover to.
Flip it over. That's it. It's half of that.
Oh, no, that's the print. That's the print from the 70s. The Metamorphosis Odyssey print with the two of them facing
Yeah,
each other.
so this is an
Dreadstar and
archival
Octagon.
quality version of it.
Yeah.
Not signed.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. That was
get this-
that was a Lord Papal. I remember.
Yeah, that's a papal.
That's the back cover to one of the early issues of
Right
Dreadstar.
there.
Yeah.
I think there's a couple other. That might be as high as this one goes. Some of these get a little ridiculous, where it's like if you're just like I said, you can buy fucking
Stretch the
everything.
shit out of it,
You just
yeah.
buy fucking everything, and they give you one of everything. But
If you buy everything, Jim Starlin will spit
yeah.
on your book.
so this
Well, actually,
one's
have
one thing
DNA.
that's funny is like right now, Dynamite or Dynamic Forces is selling Jim Starlin's file copy. And so basically all the comics he's produced over the years, he's gotten his file copy of the book as part of his comps, I guess. And so he's now signing those that are being sold on a monthly basis by Dynamic Forces for like $400 and $500 a piece.
so yeah.
Or
this-
you could just get your own copy, probably in better condition, get him to sign it at a show. Worth $400, according to Dynamic Forces.
So let's see. Dreadstar Returns funded. They were only asking for $28,000. They got $136,000 with 1,700 backers. I mean, that's a lot of fucking. That's pretty damn good. And then versus the Inevitable, they wanted 31, and they're at 62. So I don't know, or 63. So I don't know. We'll see. But the bonus stuff in this one isn't as good as the.
Well, and also you got a bunch of people that would have backed it this time if they had been fucked around last time.
That could very much be it. They're going to be like, this shit's going to be on Amazon in 3 months. Why would I worry? Why am I going through all this Kickstarter trouble?
Right, yeah.
I am the opposite of you. I would much rather make sure this money is going straight to Starlin and gets the book out.
Well, I mean, the plan was to go to a convention to literally put it in his
Sure,
hands. So it's
sure.
like, but you actually have the books and I don't.
Yeah.
And therefore he has your money and he does not have my money. So
Yeah, and then then the quality of the digital versions they sent over are really, really nice. And you know they're getting them from the actual print files.
Right. You can actually
Whereas,
scan the shit now.
Like a Comixology shit is going to just probably be somebody scan the stuff into a thing. I don't know for sure.
Yeah.
But so yeah, I mean, I thought I'm full Kickstarter. I'll Kickstart it and then I just forget about it.
Yeah.
We're good. And like I said, there are enough tiers that it's usually fairly cheap. If you want to go heavy and get a bunch of signed stuff, you can, but you don't have to.
We got a bunch of cool ass prints. I'm envious of some of those prints for sure.
Yeah, and again, they're straight up. A lot of them are autographed, and I just set it and forget it. I pledged my money, and I forgot it happened. And then I started getting all the comments from the people commenting on the board saying, "Hey, where's our shit at? I just ran into Jim at fucking so and so Comic Con, and he's hawking it at his booth." And I was like, "I'm not going to buy it from him because you've already got my money." And I was like, anyway.
Okay, so but we do need to backtrack now because we
Yes.
haven't talked about Dreadstar the graphic novel.
Oh, did we finish talking about the price?
I think so, well, no, I mean we
just recapped.
Yeah,
We didn't talk
kinda
about it at
recapped.
all.
So yeah, I think it's a great origin story. I think it's one of the most effective. Certainly, in my mind, it's the most effective Metamorphosis Odyssey story. If you don't count the comics that follow, the 4-color comic books it follows. I think it's the best standalone story of those. I really love the way Syzygy Darklock, the Deacon, looks. He's very well painted. He's very handsome. He looks like a heroic figure. And so to see that fucking destroyed over the course of the story, and then for him to come out with his similarly iconic but nowhere near as handsome appearance, it's a really cool origin story, and it's very fucking dark and very neat. And
There's a couple little
great
twists.
visuals, some twists to it. I think it's with a lot of this stuff I'm reading it because of what's going to come later on, where I can actually read the price and appreciate it for what it is on the page. So no, I'm definitely a fan. I definitely recommend it to people.
Yeah, I agree. It's a much easier read than the first part of the Metamorphosis Odyssey, especially because having read past it, that Syzygy Darklock is like a huge part of the series, whereas most of the folks in the first set are all like,
They're
other than
disposable.
Vance, none of you people
we
really have-
interviewed Jim Starlin, and he said the same thing. Is these guys aren't going to be around at the end of the
Yeah.
story, so
Yeah.
you're just not going to invest as much in them as a creator and as the audience.
Yeah, I mean, both books look amazing, but
But I do think that it's actually, I think he has a better command of the craft in the price than he did during the Metamorphosis Odyssey. We don't get the lush colors, but I really enjoy the visuals. I think it's more visually consistent.
anyway, huge fan of it.
Yeah.
And again, I love it. It's and so that was what, 1980 we're saying was the
Yeah,
price,
80,
right?
yeah.
It's not too wordy. It's just
There's
enough.
a lot of text at the beginning, and because that's one of the things is
that's
like
setting up
I
the
was
war. And
my
everything.
eyes are a
I
little
mean,
older
that's-
than yours, and so I needed to be very particular about what version I read to even be able to get through the copy. I was struggling with some of that.
Oh man, I had lasers done. No, for me, it's just, to me, this is the perfect balance of art and story. I don't want to be done with this thing in 3 minutes.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
As pretty as it is, you can block some of the paintings with words, and to me, this is a really good balance.
Yeah.
It ain't Chris Claremont.
You know what?
Where I'm peeking around boxes to see what they drew.
You know, what it might be too is I might be confusing the price with the Dreadstar graphic novel. So let's segue into
Okay.
that. So this is Marvel graphic novel number 3. They wanted Jim Starlin to do the first Marvel graphic novel, but they didn't want the first Marvel graphic novel to be Jim Starlin's creator-owned characters. And so they cut a deal with him. It's like, we'll do your thing, but do a thing for us. We want you to do, I think they actually specifically wanted the death of Captain Marvel. I think they asked for the death of Captain Marvel because nobody who did the character after Starlin left could figure out what to do with him. And really, for the most part, nobody who did the character before Jim Starlin knew what to do with him. And so they decided, well, they wanted to have something momentous. And I think probably they already had Monica Rambeau in the pipeline. They were ready to pass that name down to an entirely different character. Since it happened pretty quickly or around the same time as the graphic novel. So they cut the deal where it's like, okay, you do one for us and then you can do one for you. So he does The Death of Captain Marvel as a pen and ink illustrated comic book type story. Then they had one, I want to say The New Mutants was probably the second one. And then the third one is Dreadstar. And once again, it's Metamorphosis Odyssey. It's more painted artwork, oil painting. But this one is an entire story about Vance Dreadstar, as opposed to him being almost a supporting character in the Metamorphosis Odyssey. You know, he doesn't even come into the 5th installment. It's really more about Octaton and the plot in general. It's more of an ensemble, but really mostly Octaton carries it. And he's just like a major supporting character. This one, he is the guy. And Mr. Fixit, do you remember that story? Do you remember the graphic novel?
No.
Not even from the recaps from the original comics? Or not the
What are you
original
talking
comics, but
about
the floppies?
Which one are you talking about?
The graphic novel, Dreadstar.
That's before he becomes a superhero, right?
Well, he still has superhuman powers.
But
yeah.
no, but I'm talking when he goes
He's
to
not
full on.
Well,
Like,
no, this is well before. No, this is the graphic novel.
Okay,
so this is
so
before the ongoing
the hoodie,
series starts.
he's still kind of jumping
Yeah,
around.
yeah.
Yeah, that's Plan M and all that stuff, right?
That's still the comics, though.
That's our comics?
Yeah, though I'm talking about the graphic novel.
I'm sure I read it, but dude, it's been 20 plus
Too
years.
long, yeah.
It's got cats. That's why I thought you were maybe thinking that this was the cats.
There's a lot more cats in this one.
A lot more cats in it
Dude, There's cats in all his shit.
He's on a planet of cats in this one.
He's got a thing for the pussy, but I'm pretty sure. I mean, is that where it becomes more space opera?
No. If anything, it's less space opera. It's a little bit more grounded, I would say.
I'd have to read it, dude. Like I said, 20 plus years, dude.
Understood. I was just checking.
But I remember. I mean, it's.
Well, see, here's the God's honest truth. That's one of the reasons why we were reading this. Is I really was going to have you come in once we started on the floppies because you're kind of the Skeevo anyway.
Yeah.
You remember Skeevo?
Wasn't he like the
purple guy?
Yeah, but he's kind of the manipulator, or no? He was kind of.
He was just sort of the salt of the earth dude who comes in late.
Is he the one that looks like Breed, kind of?
Not really.
Why
He's a big purple guy.
We'll talk about this when we get to it.
Okay.
You're just convoluting all this shit up with all this. I remember talking about Kickstarter.
I mean, I remember reading this stuff a long time ago, and I did enjoy it. And I do need to revisit it now. Like, I'm old enough now where I think I would really enjoy it and probably get more out of it. Kind of like Starlin's Warlock. I've been rereading his Warlock stuff, and I'm enjoying it a lot more right now.
We need to do that too. We need to work on that one too.
Yeah.
I read that 7 years ago for a podcast that never happened.
Oh shit! Yeah.
Almost 8 years ago.
Well, I was cleaning my little man cave in the back, and for some reason I had like them stacked. So I just like sat down for a minute and just started reading the first one. I'm like, God damn, this is good.
He's going to be in a motion picture rather soon. So.
Yeah, well, that helps too.
Well, it also helps that I've got the treasury-sized hardcover of those stories now, so I can whip that bad boy out and give that a read.
The story got set into a world where these experimental creatures, the people, Eddie's people, were.
Dreadstar graphic novel. It is the story of Vanth Dreadstar. He lands or appears on this planet.
Well, it basically picks up from the from the coda of the Metamorphosis Odyssey, the last chapter, and then carries on from there.
Right. So he's there. He doesn't know where he is, how he got there. Ditches the sword and is discovered by a race of cat people. It's explained these cat people were genetically engineered by the instrumentality to be like a fighting force, and it turns out they were fucking terrible. But they're incredible farmers. So they just let them stay on this planet where they were like training to be this awesome fighting force and were terrible. And they just let them cultivate this planet, grow whatever they need. The instrumentality will come every few months with like a ship and take whatever they've grown away, give them some supplies back, give them just enough food to survive, and then they jet out and they'll like keep farming, right? There's a woman there. What is her name? Oh my gosh, I'm knocking shit over. Is it Delilah? Is that her name?
That's my recollection.
Yeah. So she was there.
And I want to say Delilah is probably Dinah Grezjunas, his wife.
Yeah. And we knew there was another woman somewhere. So this is Delilah. She stayed living with her cats. Her husband passed away on the planet, and she was considering leaving, but she likes the cat people, so she was hanging out with them. They discovered Dreadstar. Dude has like horrific injuries, like burns.
Well, there's supposed to be radium burns, which are supposed to always be lethal.
Yeah, they call it atomic poisons. They say like, and then like home dude just keeps getting better, and she's staying in this room with him, trying to nurture him back to health, but she's just like he's just getting better. Right. Or she was basically there to be with him while he died.
And it's like a hospicey thing, yeah. And so he keeps hanging out with his dick root, and she seems to like that
lots of dick root in this one. Anyway, Vanth gets better, and then he just is like, you know what? I want to fucking be a farmer too with these cats, and that's basically what he does. He hangs out with the cats, and they're like, all right, he's helping us. He can stay. That's cool. And he develops this friendship with all the cats. Delilah stays there with him, and then at some point she sort of explains to him what this planet even is, and he's just like, what's the instrumentality? He doesn't know about any of this stuff. She's like, how do you not know about this celestial war that's been raging for 200 years? He's like, I don't know anything about it. Like, sorry. So anyway, she explains what it is.
And one of the key points too is that the war's been raging for so long, in part because each of the organization's economies are based on the war.
Right.
And so they're just going to perpetuate this war without really wanting to win. Both sides kind of try to calibrate things so they don't win. None of them are supposed to advance because they're just trying to maintain both their economies through the war.
Which goes back to the last chapter of the Metamorphosis Odyssey, where they basically say that it's the outskirts where the war rages. Everything on the internal planets, it's just business as usual. And then that feeds into this, that it's like it's business as usual because that's exactly what they want. The military industrial complexes in both of these two organizations are just churning war Everybody in outskirts suffer. Everybody inside is perfectly fine. They don't get touched by it, and it continues to balance the budgets. Is what I think that's the term they use at some point. There, it just balances the budgets. And when she's explaining it to Vanth, he just goes, "That's madness. You fight wars to win, not to balance budgets." But that's what it is. It's how the economies are now based on these wars, and for one side to win, then they would both lose. So you would defeat them, and then your economy would collapse, and you both lose. So they've almost got like a gentleman's agreement to just keep fighting forever. Anyway, Vanth and Delilah end up getting it on here. They have a long life together, and that's when they realize that, like, or I guess it's like Vanth doesn't even realize that everyone's getting old around him, right?
Yeah, or he's a little slow to catch on to that. But one thing that happens too is he'd gotten rid of the sword. He's in bed with Delilah one night. The sword just sort of manifests. He's like, well, you know what? It probably wasn't a great idea to just leave the sword lying around anyway. I guess you and I are stuck with each other. Reabsorb the sword. He already had enough power, residual power from the sword. Again, not unlike the Star brand, as for instance, where he was still superhumanly strong. He was still healing from wounds that anybody else would die from. But of course, he's going to be even more powerful with the sword in his direct contact. And he's not aging. So they end up spending 30 years together. And we actually see Delilah as an older woman by the time we're getting toward the end of the graphic novel. She's got white hair and she's aged. He has not.
So then at the end of this 30 years, Syzygy Darklock comes to the planet.
And almost verbatim, the last few pages of the price are represented. Now, I didn't look to see if there's the same actual paintings or not. Knowing Starlin, it probably isn't. He probably actually went in there and repainted them all over again because he's just that committed. But there's a really good chance that people, even if they have access to a comic shop, I assume the Marvel graphic novels were probably in bookstores like Walden Books and B. Dalton. I'm not confident the Eclipse Enterprises Price graphic novel would have been. And so he represents the key information from the price within the Dreadstar graphic novel.
So Vanth is asked by the cat people, like, go down there and confront this guy. He goes down and he talks to him, and they're basically like, they become buddies. So now, like, once every week, Vanth takes a bunch of homemade wine. Once a month? Once a month, he takes a bunch of homemade wine from the farm, takes it down to Syzygy's ship/igloo kind of thing that he's built, and they hang out and they talk about everything. So basically, Vanth is learning everything from him. And then one day he gets down there and he's like, all right, now we got to like talk about, some real shit. And he basically walks him through, like, you and I are supposed to, we're like prophesized to fulfill the vision he had in the price. And he's all like, yeah, it's not happened, dude. I'm going to be a farmer. He's like, I'm not leaving this planet. I'm going to, it's a little more confrontational than that. But that's basically just it. He's like, no, I gave up because, yeah, I know I got the sword. Because he brings up the sword and he's like, how the fuck do you know about my sword?
And I just double checked. He absolutely repaints the material and represents it in a different manner. It's obviously more drawn out in the Dreadstar graphic novel. But yeah, it's basically, dude, you got destiny. Nah, bro, nah. But more volatile.
So anyway, he storms out of his igloo, and when he walks out, there's like a plume.
And this has gone on for like 2 years or so at this point, of like 24 monthly visits,
And that's when he also brings up to him, he's like, have you not noticed that you haven't aged a day since you've been here, and your wife is like dying of old age? Like, dude, you gotta wake up. You can't just stay here with the farmer cats.
Quit denying. He couldn't be so foolish as to not realize his wife is aging and he isn't. So it's got to be denial. They have water. They have reflective water sources in his planet at minimum.
So he walks out of Darklock's igloo to see that his village is under attack, under siege. Once he gets there, everybody's slaughtered, and Delilah is basically like crucified.
She's on a St. Andrew's cross, nude and bloodied. We see her in like a 3/4 angle or sub profile or something where you can't quite make out everything, but she's had really bad shit happen to her, and some monarchists are giggling about it essentially.
Yep. And so basically, what the information just moved so slowly that there was a planet where they were training cat people. Eventually, they didn't get word that the experiment failed. They just
70 years prior.
Right. 70 years ago. Again, this is the mechanisms and bureaucracy of the military-industrial complex here. I'm sure they've got a $3 billion toilet and hammer or whatever the fuck. Anyway, these dudes showed up and they were like, "It's the fucking cat people, nuke them," and they just nuked the whole village, not knowing that how out of date their information was.
Well, I will say I think there's a little bit more of a Vietnam analog. There may have been some sort of a napalmy thing at places. There were obviously the explosions, but obviously they're also going into the village and doing horrible shit to people too.
That is true. That is true.
And I do think that's important too, because this is a Vietnam veteran and he has talked about some of the things he experienced in the war and processing it through his art and shit. So I think there was something to that.
And then when he's interrogating one of the guys, he tells him, he goes, "I'm Lieutenant Sandors of the 1st Nova Squadron, His Majesty's Imperial Navy." And that comes back later. So anyway, he talks to Syzygy and he's just like, "I got a plan. I know what I'm going to do." And he's like, "What are you going to do?" He's like, "I'm going to enlist." And he's like, "What are you talking about? You're going to enlist. So he basically joins, let's say specifically.
No, he doesn't join that specific unit, but that does come back later on.
Right, yeah. So
He's eventually Captain Dreadstar, and his commanding officer gets a radium blast, and he's slowly dying too. And Dreadstar's like, okay, well, I'm going to go do my plan now. And the captain guy who's dying is like, I should probably report you for this. This isn't cool what you're doing, but also, I don't know, I'm just going to let you get away with it because you were always a good guy and you kick a bunch of ass and you won all these battles and you're not even supposed to win battles. The whole point is you won so many battles, they want to get you away from the front line and get you near the king. You're going to be one of the king's guards now. It's like, oh, really? The king, huh? But in the meantime, he did have one major defeat where this Nova Squadron were completely wiped out under this particularly bad battle.
No. He didn't lose. It was, he sent them as the first wave to get
They're
annihilated.
cannon-fodder, yeah.
Whoops. So that
Oopsie.
Nova Squadron, they get wiped out. And then he won with basically no casualties. And there was like, oh yeah, you clean the floor with them. Hey, what happened with that first wave that got wiped out? He's like, oh, I don't know. So he goes to Jewel City, home of the royal family. Like, as you said, he was too good at his job and they yanked him and they put him on the homeworld. That's where he suits up in his old hoodie, gets his blaster.
And one thing I do want to specify is in the Metamorphosis Odyssey, he's running around the gray. And by the time he gets to the graphic novel, he's now in the blues. And I'm sure the blue is the more iconic visual. I mean, even though they make a big point of him coming out of that costume during the comic book series, when I'm looking at your nifty little hardcover here of the new material, he's back in the blues. So this is the way we want to see our Dreadstar.
So he basically storms through the Capitol building, kills the current king. His son then takes over.
And there's a whole secession thing where the whole point was he's got a bunch of sons. He didn't want any of them to actually be able to do anything to him, or they could kill him and try to take over the empire. So they're all ineffectual brat kids.
Awful.
Yeah. As they say in the TV show, unserious people.
So Dreadstar knows exactly what he's doing. He then goes to the first son who's going to take over and says, hey, here's the plan you're going to do. And the guy's like, what the fuck are you talking about? I have a clue what I'm doing. And he's like, no, you're going to do this stuff. You're going to start, basically, you're going to stop this whole, he gives him like an economic plan that he and Syzygy have drawn out. And he goes, this is how you're going to wean these planets off of being funded by war, give them a real economy.
And not only that, but after a little bit of losses, you'll actually be of a raging economy before long.
Right. It's gonna be
and you're going to create a barricade where it's an impenetrable barrier where your kingdom will be protected. You'll fall back, but you'll be impenetrable, and your economy is going to be great. Do what I said.
He was like, basically, all these companies are going to kill me, and he's all like, I'll take care of it. Don't worry. He's like, they're going to leave you alone. And that's basically where it ends, right? Because it's because I know they set up something else after this, right? And they just set on what's basically going to be the ongoing series, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not even sure they got that far. Like, go ahead and go to the last page. No, that's what. So the graphic novel ends. This was credited as Book 3 of the Metamorphosis Odyssey. I guess it was possible that this would be the end, but the intention was always that no, we will continue to tell these stories. But it takes a minute though. So this was how I read the graphic novel. I read the actual graphic novel. You can give that a look.
I read this one too, I think.
Now, I will say at this point in this game, I actually laid out all the different versions on the floor, sitting Indian style, and just like flipped through to see which one I wanted to read, which one looked the best. I have to say the original Marvel graphic novel looks the best. It has the highest quality of printing. One of the problems that I have with the beginning, as I look through it, it is nice that you have those rich blacks, but they do the thing that I do myself when I'm doing scans for blog pages and stuff. They just crank up the contrast too high to get those blacks. And since most of this material was done with an intention of it being more of a gray tone, it obliterates a lot of detail, especially when you have especially in the paintings where you have like textures under hoods and textures within shadows. Those become obscured because they become solid blacks in the representation. So the colors are still good. The colors are actually more bold in the Dynamite versions, but the blacks are so black that it does obliterate detail. So that's why ultimately I have to say that the graphic novel is the best presentation.
Well, the graphic novel is bigger too.
Yeah, the dimensions, it's true though that the Dreadstar at the beginning is not comic format. It is more of a square presentation, but it is smaller.
But yeah, like
the trim size is smaller.
You do lose detail because like there's a page where it's like a cool close up here of Vance's face in the hood. In the graphic novel, you can see the texture of the canvas that he painted on. And here, if I wouldn't have seen it there, I can get kind of close and see a little bit of it, but it's not near. I mean, you can see like the grains of the canvas in his face on this. So you were right. This looks way better.
Yeah, my assumption.
This doesn't look bad.
Yeah, it looks good. If you don't have a basis for comparison, comparison. It's kind of like we liked VHS and we had DVD. It's not that pronounced. Probably more like, I don't know, DVD and Blu-ray maybe. You know, they're still both pretty good. It's just one's a little bit better.
All right,
bit
boomer,
sharper.
calm down. I liked them back when they were on talkies.
But usually you're gonna side with the newer process, the newer scans, and that's why I'm really curious about these omnibuses that Ominous did, because my understanding is they went back and they reshot the stuff, and I think Starlin was saying is one of the sales points is that this was the best presentation of the stories ever. But I don't have any of those, so I don't have a basis for comparison. I thought you had them.
We'll see in a week because I ordered them, so they're on their way.
So what did you think of the graphic novel?
I like the graphic novel. It's still not as good as the price.
No.
But I like Vanth so much. He is absent from the price, which kind of sucks. Like,
Yeah.
he's not even there. I mean, maybe there's like a
3 pages at most.
yeah.
Like, really
like
more
a headshot. They show the sword
Yeah.
and the flash forward or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's not there. I need them together, so this brings them together.
Right.
The plan is for how for the plan are so slow moving in some of these comic books. They really hit fast forward on his military career.
Right.
I mean, it's like real fast. He's like, I think I'm going to enlist. I'm the captain and most, and it's just like, whoa, dude. Like we skipped. You couldn't even give us a recap of his military
we
career?
spent so much time on this farm.
You like to recap everything that's happened. You couldn't have given us a little, hey, in the last 10, 15 years, this is what's happened to
Right.
Vanth's
Because
military
that's the kind of
career.
time frame he's working off of. Too.
He's wearing this big military top hat and he's going through the thing. So yeah, I mean, I guess you could read that anyway. It could be, let's get this over with so that I can start working on the actual series, or like you could say it could be maybe this meant to be the end, and he didn't know if he was going to publish any more Dreadstar stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like he knew he was, and he was like, we got to get to the end of this story.
I feel like the comic launched relatively close to the graphic novel.
Yeah.
So I guess he wanted to probably tell a satisfying story for it to be book 3, but it's still, I mean, it could have been the ending though. It was set up where in production it could have been.
At the end, though, they talk about we've got so much work to do ahead of us, and but that can
as much as everything like Syzygy Darklock, Syzygy, whatever. He didn't have to go through all that shit just to tell, just to show up and say, "Hey, Vanth, why don't you avenge your wife and these people?" Because he was going to do that anyway. He specifically did that against Darklock's urging. So this was a way of giving it a nice definitive ending with the full knowledge that they were going to unspool that almost immediately. So
yeah, but again, because knowing that these characters end up having such a good bond together, I like the story. It's where they first meet. I love that he's just taking him as wine,
right?
And as much as he wants to be a farmer, if he really just wanted to be a farmer, he would never go down and have these meetings with Syzygy every single month and spend hours and hours and
all
hours
night,
learning
all
and
night,
learning and learning.
Yeah.
And it's like it's because he knows. He knows.
He even learned a little
he's in
magic,
denial.
but he doesn't have that kind of
He's
soul.
in denial about his powers. He's in denial about
Well, and even the circumstance, because he knows that he can't hide away from this forever. But so long as the people that he's around are okay, that he can at least delude himself for a while. Yeah. I'm not a huge fan of the graphic novel, to be honest with you. I kind of wish that the Metamorphosis Odyssey and then maybe the price were painted, but I really wish there had been a transition away from that, especially by the time you get to the graphic novel, because seeing so many of the characters that I'm familiar with from 4-color comics painted, I just prefer them as comic book characters. I don't really like them as painted. I don't feel that way toward, like, say, Octaton, because I don't know him as a comic book character. I know him as a painted graphic novel character. And with Syzygy, it's kind of cool because, again, you've got him as the deacon or bishop, right?
Bishop.
Yeah, because the deacons are the guys with they're like more the bully boys, I think. So he's transitioning into Syzygy Darklock, that I know, the sorcerer. So it kind of works for the price. But once you get to this book, it's like I really want it to be a comic book at this point. And also the problem is my introduction to the whole shebang was in Dreadstar and Company, which was a reprint of Dreadstar #1, where they recap all this shit and then they get into the stories I'm more into.
Yeah.
So for me, this is all like episode 1 shit. This is all like, I don't need to see Anakin Skywalker doing the pod races before he gets brought into the
Wouldn't go
Jedi.
that far. This is pod race.
It's better than that, but it's still like, for me, the story begins with A New Hope. For me, the story begins with Luke Skywalker not knowing what happened with his dad, and learning from Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that's Star Wars. The rest of that shit, if you're into it, great, you're into it, but I'm like, get to the part that I care about. Get to Luke and Leia and Darth Vader,
Right.
and Han Solo, and that's the shit I want to see, and that's what Dreadstar is to me. This is, again, it's prequel stuff. It's not as bad as the actual Star Wars prequels. I guess another way of putting it would be Clone Wars.
Oh God, Boomer, stop, please.
Yeah.
Stop, Boomer, please.
So yeah.
Yeah,
So-
my least favorite part of the graphic novel was when Syzygy showed up and said, "Misa, Misa, Mr. Vant, Mr. Vant, Misa, Misa."
Okay, so it's Clone Wars stuff then. It's like I'm invested in
Rogue One.
Huh? Well, no, I liked Rogue One, so that's
What are
maybe
we
a good
doing?
one.
I know,
Yeah.
I know, but
What
you
are we
liked
doing here?
you liked Rogue One.
There you go, Rogue One. Okay, so yeah, fine. Yeah, it's Rogue One. That's fair.
That's good.
Yeah.
I
or
just-
Solo, a Star Wars story, I
Never
guess.
saw it.
I don't
Doesn't-
like Solo, though.
I don't know. It doesn't matter. So,
Well,
okay.
there are a lot of Solo defenders out there. That's a movie. I fell asleep during that movie on
Fuck
an
you.
airplane.
I actually like that movie.
All right,
that's
stop
fine.
it. Stop.
Put me to
stop,
sleep.
Stop. I like that it's all painted. Reading fully painted shit like this to me is like I like it.
like it?
This cannot be easy for somebody who's used to being a 4-color comic book artist to paint this shit. I want to see how big these original
The paintings
pages were. Yeah, I want to see how big they were. You know what I mean? I mean,
Are they on canvas?
I mean, they're definitely on canvas. You can
You think
see the
so?
canvas through. Yeah, you can see the canvas through the
Okay.
in the printing.
So how many so what you're asking is like how many canvases on a wall at a time was he painting?
Yeah.
That's
Like,
kinda, that would have been really interesting to see.
I mean, even if it's just the size of a comic book page painted, that's
By
huge.
17, yeah.
I think they're bigger than that.
Oh yeah, they probably are. And also keep in mind, this is oil paint, man.
Oil paint.
This ain't acrylics. That shit takes a long
Yes.
fucking time to draw. I mean, to dry. And also, isn't it kind of intoxicating after a while? I mean, I'm sure he was probably a little bit sauced to begin
I mean,
with.
well, no, in the 70s, yeah, there were lots of the
Cocaine was a hell of a drug too.
could be,
so.
because you can dilute acrylic with water. So but for the oil, you have to dilute it using an ether or whatever. That's what fucking killed Bob Ross, because he would twist the tip of his.
I thought it was because he would like bang it.
Well, they think that too.
Yeah, he
yeah,
was banging him in inhaling.
Yeah, he
that
would
shit.
bang it and he was spraying it, inhaling it, and everything
Yeah.
all over the place. Whereas with acrylic, again, you dip it in water and you clean your brushes and you're good to go. No, with the licking the tip of the thing, that was the what do they call them? The chicks who had they were riding the glow in the dark.
Oh, right,
shit
the chick,
on
yeah, the
uranium
phosphorescent,
girls or whatever the fuck they call them.
the what it the clock dials or something.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
the clock, yeah.
So that's what they were doing. They would get the tip of their brush pointy by sticking it in their mouth, and they all got fucking face cancer and died.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking of. But I mean, it's the same basic thing, except one of them's radioactive and one of them's just carcinogen. Anyway, I love this stuff's painted. To me, that since this stuff is all prequel stuff, it makes sense that it just looks totally different, right? It's like it's like the dream you had that looks different before you get to the real story. So I like that it's all painted. It's a nice. It would be weird if like the first 3 issues of Dreadstar and Company were painted and then it changed to 4-color. That'd be weird.
That's fair. That's fair.
But at least,
but also, the point is, I'm ready for my story to start.
okay, that's fine. You are. To me though, this stuff. These aren't like the graphic novel. I think took me 20 minutes to read, if even that. Like it does not. These are not long reads. I would
Odyssey
say
wasn't it?
We're not talking about that shit yet. We're not talking about that shit. Will you stop? The first chapter of the Metamorphosis Odyssey, I think, took a little time to read. But the price, you blow through the price. The graphic novel blew right through that thing. It was. Who cares?
Willow, she got in there almost by accident. I think I was doing one story and I introduced this person and I said, well, she's with him at the end. We got to do something with her.
And so the final coverage today, my reading of this story originally was through December 1982 issue of Epic Illustrated. This is the first prequel story for the Dreadstar series as opposed to a graphic novel. This is a bridging story to get from the graphic novel to let the ongoing series kind of get started. Fixit, was this one that you had?
Probably.
With the Boris Vallejo
This is
cover?
the cover? Yeah, that looks real familiar.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I still have it in my collection.
You want to pass that over to him right quick?
Oh, yeah. I definitely read this one.
Okay.
Yeah, just seeing it, I'm like, yeah, there's the... fucking Lord Papal looks like Thanos, dude, without the nut chin.
Nobody is disagreeing.
I'm saying the character is substantially different, and that it's a bit of a cheat to say that 2 guys that just have a slight physical resemblance are the same guy.
They're big square bald guys.
Yeah. So this story, like I said, it is a bridge. We've spent a bunch of a story talking about what happens in instrumentality, not even really like neutral space, but it's an instance where the monarchy are the aggressors, and we really haven't done much with the instrumentality as aggressive forces. If you look at the price, the aside from the moments when Syzygy is talking toward the Papal, you don't really see much of the instrumentality. And then with the monarchy, we get to see them because we see Jewel World or Throne World, whatever it's called. We see him in combat with those forces. forces, and we see them attacking and stuff. So this is an instance where we can see the instrumentality as aggressors. And so they've got this mining colony, and essentially all the dregs end up there, all these trafficked people, like people who didn't have anything else to contribute to the instrumentality, get stuck doing this work. And it's horrible back-breaking mining work. And Vanth and another person who's not immediately identified are there. And Vanth runs across a woman who looks way too much like Delilah, and he kind of moons over her for a minute. And the guy who's working with is like, come on, man, we got to go. I see what you're looking at, but we got to go. And so they go and they turn off the wrong way, and there are these deacons who are the guys in the comic books that are wearing the skull cap, and they got the gigantic white collars, and they're the guys who basically are the fascist enforcers for the instrumentality. And so they know that these miners are where they're not supposed to be, and these guys are like, well, okay, you're right, you got us. We're going to kick your ass now. And they proceed to do so. Problem is, the guy who's working with Vanth isn't as experienced of a fighter and doesn't realize that these laser blasts that are getting fired in a mine are going to probably hit like an important pillar somewhere. And so the rocks start coming down. And as they manage to clear their way, they find that the girl that he was moving over earlier is pinned under a multi-ton rock. And he's like, the guy he's with is like, okay, well, we got to go. You can't help this lady. You can't do anything about this. This is just ridiculous. And then that's when they start doing the recap of everything related to Vanth Dreadstar. We get the origin story again. We get a short version of the first book of the Metamorphosis Odyssey. We get some stuff from the price. We get some stuff from the Dreadstar graphic novel. Now, what you will see is this is not painted artwork. This is, again, like I think Blackboard, where he's drawing the white portions in. And I have to say that the presentation in Epic Illustrated is, again, the better one, because even though everything is sort of gray, you lose a lot of detail because they pumped up the contrast too much in the Dynamic Forces version or the Dynamite Comics version. But it's super fucking annoying to read it in Epic Illustrated, and Mr. Fixit having flipped through it. Would you like to explain why it's super fucking annoying?
On what?
Why it's super fucking annoying to read that story in the issue of Epic Illustrated you tossed
Well, it
through?
keeps changing up, like styles.
Well, that like you get certain number of pages in, and then it's like continued on page X.
Yeah.
A few more pages of other people's shit. Get back to it. There are 4 breakpoints in the goddamn magazine where it's like a choose your own adventure trying to find the story to continue it.
And then you have
because they've got different pages, folded into each other. It's just irritating as fuck.
But it does have this pretty cool promotional for Dreadstar, and where they kind of
where they're actually showing some pages from the comic book.
yeah, they're talking about how Epic was to help creator-owned IPs, find their way.
All these people have been coming up that from these other publishers, and Marvel wants to make sure we've got a place for our creators to do their creator-owned work too.
Vertigo.
Oh yeah, way before Vertigo though. So and what's funny too is the story wasn't even intended for Epic Illustrated. What had happened was he worked out a deal where this was going to be an issue of Bizarre Adventures, and that's why it was closer to line art. It isn't quite line art, like I said. It's like white chalk or something on black paper, but it's still black and white, and it's definitely not painted. And it was designed to be printed on the shitty paper stock that a Bizarre Adventures would be on. But then Archie Goodwin was like, no, that's mine. That's going to be in my magazine. You're not going to put that in the Bizarre Adventures. It's an Epic series. There's going to be an Epic ongoing series. We're putting this in an Epic book. And so after the recap, including some stuff we didn't get to see in the graphic novels, like actually seeing Vanth in like a loincloth learning to fight new ways from Syzygy, then we're back to the big old rock. And it's funny because reading interviews, especially contemporaneous interviews, basically Jim Starlin talks about how the whole point of Dreadstar is a moment like this, where somebody who decides that they can get something done, if they're focused enough, if they're committed enough, they'll find a way and they'll get it done. And he felt that way as an artist. He felt that way as a person who's trying to get the Metamorphosis Odyssey off the ground. And he wanted that to be reflected in the story. And so very much like the Steve Ditko, the famous image from Spider-Man where he's buried under rocks and eventually liberates himself. There's a little bit of like maybe Thunderbolt, the Peter Cannon series. I will. So eventually nobody, even the woman who's trapped, does not think that he's gonna be able to pull this off. And even she's like, this is horrible. I hate that I'm going to die like this, but get out of here, And he tries, and the rock shatters and falls, and he can't get enough of a grip. And again, they're like, this is going to happen, give it up. And then they flash back to why they're on the planet, because they're trying to get a hold of a great big cargo ship, because they need that for Plan M. They specifically say Plan M, so they're very much leading directly into the ongoing series. We also find out once he takes his mask off that the person with Vanth Dreadstar is one of the cat people, a surviving cat person, which we don't have any indication of in the graphic novel. So this is a pretty important revelation that there's a whole other one of these guys is still left to be part of the company. And And so Dreadstar goes back again, and he tries even harder, and he's thinking about all the insurmountable odds against them being able to pull this off, what they've got planned to try to go up against this war. And he's just like, I'm going to do this. If I can't do this, I can't do any of the rest of it, and I might as well just go kill myself or something, right? And so he finally wills himself. He lifts the damn thing up. He's talking about, let's see, for I am Vanth Dreadstar. I am the wielder of the sword. I am the slayer of kings. I am the killer of wizards. I am the destroyer of galaxies. I have faced death squarely, and I have conquered it. I did it once. I can do it again. For I am power. I am Dreadstar. I am power. I am Dreadstar. Nothing is impossible. Very, very Shia LaBeouf. Full Shia LaBeouf here.
Some people dream of success while you're gonna wake up and work hard at it. Nothing is impossible. You should get to the point where anyone else would quit, and you're not gonna stop there. No, what are you waiting for? Do it! Just do it! Yes, you can! Do it!
And he lifts it, and then he has Eddie jump in there and grab the girl and pull her free. And then they're like, okay, glad we could help you with this. See you later. And they split. And she's just like, bye? And so they run by some more deacons. They beat up the deacons. You see a still panel where the Eddie and Vanth have run away, and then the deacons are still lying there. And then you see some legs coming behind them. They're being kind of slick about shit. And then you see they've gotten the big ship that they need, and they're flying away. And it notes that, okay, well, we're ready to do the whole Dreadstar thing now. Let's get on that. And that's when we have the advertisement for the comic book ongoing series. So, of course, there's a strong illusion that this woman is going to have something to do with things going forward, and she is, but there's going to be a definite jump from where this book ends and where the comic book begins. They're going to do the thing they're talking about they're going to do at the end, where we're going to go rob the instrumentality now, but there's obviously a little bit more stuff that has to go on between those 2 points because of what's going to happen with that female character.
I don't think I'd ever read this before until
you didn't read it now.
Well, I didn't read it now, but I mean, whenever I would start reading the price, I'm like, I've read this like 5-6 times. This one, I don't, but I do remember him lifting the rock, doing the I am the destroyer of galaxies. I remember that, but I don't know if that was just from flipping through it sometime. But
and I know it got loud, but if you look at it, it's loud in the comic book too.
Just to I just want to thank you, Frank. I've read it, but because of what your performance, I felt it. I truly felt it.
That's all I wanted. That's all I ever wanted.
To the cockles of my body, I felt it.
And again, it's 2 pages of him getting louder and louder, progressively louder. So,
and once again, you were correct. It looks way better in the Epic Illustrated.
You just lose a lot of detail. And I love those solid blacks. I'm a big fan. I do it myself. Sometimes I'll sacrifice the fidelity of the image to give it pop, especially because I'm usually shrinking my shit down pretty small. So that it's more important for me to get color and sharpness or darkness. But yeah, you just lose something in the artwork, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, I don't think, what issue Epic is that?
This is the December 1982 issue. As far as numbers, I'm not sure.
I don't think those are just growing on trees anywhere. So you're probably going to be easier to just get the beginning.
But I am really curious if any of this stuff is in the omnibuses or if they just go straight to the comic. And see, that's one of my problems too, is I bought these comics.
I don't think it is.
So many different fucking ways. I bought Dreadstar. I bought Dreadstar and Company. I bought the Dynamite version. I bought the slave labor graphics version. It's like I was having trouble going back to that well again. And I did like the Dynamite presentations, but I'm going to see what yours look like and got to go from there. Volume 1, number 15.
Okay, so I'm looking at some of the promo material for the Omnibuy, and it says that there's a forward, and then it says page 7 is Dreadstar number 9. So does it pick up? Does it not get the first 8 issues of Dreadstar?
In the first volume?
This goes all the way to page 514 in this table of contents, but it starts Dreadstar number 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24.
Yeah, because my recollection, do you have it there? Yeah, you've got the softcover version of the Dynamite edition. That's surely the first 12 issues, right?
Okay, I take it back. They have the table of contents as out of order. So you get Omnibus 3, you get Omnibus 2's table of contents, image first, then 3, then 1. So there's a forward, the Metamorphosis Odyssey, the price, Dreadstar graphic novel number 1, Dreadstar in Epic Illustrated, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then bonus features. That's 489 pages. Then you get Omnibus 2, that has a forward, and then 9 through 24 plus bonus features, and then Omnibus 3, that is 25 through 40, and bonus features on page 471. So 1 through 40, plus the price, plus the Metamorphosis Odyssey, plus the graphic novel, plus the Epic Illustrated.
Wait, 1 through 40? So they collect the Luke McDonald stuff too? I didn't realize that. I thought they had not collected any of that. I thought it was only the stuff that, yeah, I guess so, because of the costume.
Yeah.
I was always under the impression, I knew they didn't collect the pad stuff, the Peter David stuff, but I didn't think they collected the Luke McDonald stuff. I thought it was just the Jim Starlin drawn core story about the war. So, okay, interesting.
How much is that Kickstarter?
This is not a Kickstarter.
Was that no?
So that full... Yeah. And it comes in a slipcase.
Oh, it's not bad.
Well, the normal price is $199. So was it worth $199? Probably not.
For a 3-volume omnibus collecting 30 or 40 issues,
It's like 1,500 pages.
yeah. It's like for like my Who's Who, for instance, I collected 26 issues. I want to say that was a retail of like $300.
Really?
So that's not. I mean,
In the cool slipcover box. I mean,
Yeah.
They still selling it or no?
yeah.
Yeah.
And then when you get it right now, you get a free gift. And the free gifts are
nice. Yeah, see, I really want what I'm looking at right now is your Dreadstar guidebook, which is essentially their equivalent of a hot move. They don't put new illustrations. That's all sourced material from the comic books, but they do have all the variant covers, like the George Perez, R.I.P., the Bart Sears, Pat Zurcher, so that's pretty freaking cool. And they've got all of the prints and the back cover illustrations from the floppies, which I don't think are in the graphic novel, the previous collections. I can't say for the new stuff. And of course, just as a reference book, I have a devotion to these things. So I would want to have a copy of this. And I really love the texture of the cover too.
Yeah, they're like almost weirdly rubberized.
Yeah.
The Returns is the same way. It's
Yeah.
got this weird, I don't know how that's going to hold up over time.
Yeah, they did the same thing with the Django Unchained graphic novel, but that was a soft cover. It works way better in hardcover. But I love it both ways, but I like it even better as a hardcover.
Anyway, so they got a bunch of stuff you can add, like a bunch of Jim Starlin signed stuff, and then they got a bunch of Bart Sears signed stuff. Like it looks like he did a
he's one of the main guys with Ominous.
the Justice League V Suicide Squad #1 Harley Triumphant cover signed by Bart Sears. There's another. So I don't know if you bought any of this stuff. I don't know. There's some Neil Adams. There's a Star Wars. Yeah, I don't know.
I literally picked up a Hitman issue signed by Garth Ennis and John McCrane for like $1.
Yeah,
it's somebody's corner bin.
The one I got this one.
Now, granted, my name is not Spud. It's made out to Spud.
Right.
But they signed it.
My thing is like with most of the design stuff I've got, it was like we're going to do a limited edition of X number of copies, and it's going to have a tipped-in plate, or in the case of these Kickstarters, they've got a sticker on the inside front cover that's just for that, for the signatures. That I'm into. I'm cool with that. I'd like to have the autographed versions, especially with something that matters to me. But like actually taking it to them in a con, I'm not into it. I never have been.
Where was it? The Dallas Con? We went to a con. Yes, it was the Dallas Con where Mike Zex was signing, and these dudes are just like fucking pulling books and books and books.
These fuckers are bringing long boxes full of comics to get signed.
I thought that was
It's
insane.
very frustrating. I think that if you should be limited to how many you can put on your back. One of my internet friends, he loves autographs, and he will walk around with a hiker's pack on his back, braving physical harm to himself to get this done. But I think that that's a reasonable limitation. If you can carry it on your person, cool. When you need a cart and you're putting long boxes on a cart that you drag around behind you at conventions, you're out of fucking line at that point, I believe. And also the thing is too, the guy I'm talking about, he's going to go to different people. He's got a whole bunch of different comic books for different people. I got these fuckers. They'll bring a long box for just one person to sign the whole long box. And some of the guys will do it, and other ones are like, dude, I'm going to sign 10 of these. I'm going to sign 20. That's it.
Well, no, Mike Zeck charged. I remember he said, I'm charging per signature. And the guy was like, and he's like counting his books.
Yeah.
And he's put him, and he just starts hitting them. And I was just like, fuck, that's insane, dude. That's just fucking insane.
Well, especially because a lot of those guys want to go around and then get the autograph certified by some company and shit.
Yeah.
And it's like, fuck that,
Well,
man.
dude, when we went to that show in New Orleans, did you see that table where you could bring your books to be graded?
Yeah.
And they were taking, dude, that shit was insane.
That's just, to me, it's such a scam. I feel like it's such a scam.
It absolutely was a scam because they're like, so we're going to take your book. We're going to give you this little IOU. This is your book's code number. You can go on the website. We'll tell you where your book is in the process of being certified. And I'm just like,
not responsible for any damage.
Yeah.
They grade it as a 7.0 and give you back a bad copy.
Shit. I'm like, dude, that's so stupid.
Yeah.
I have my copy of Spawn #1 by Todd McFarlane, and I watched that motherfucker sign in front of me while I tried to shake his hand, and he was like, didn't give a fuck. He just wanted to leave. He was very impatient that day. But it was a fucking hotel.
Don't talk to me.
A hotel lobby full of fucking nerds.
Well, but one of my problems is I don't like the fact that comic shops don't know how to grade anymore. They want to charge you full retail for anything they've got, for regardless of condition.
That is true.
Yeah,
You're
which
right.
is bullshit. But I also don't want it to be fucking slabbed and never inaccessible forever.
Yeah.
Just so you can have a grade on it, which is negotiable. Because I've heard about too many guys who are like, no, this isn't a 9.2, this is a 9.6, and they'll actually argue with the people, and they'll be sending the books back and forth until they get the grade they want and stuff. So it's like whatever,
dude, it's already a scam because they're sending it to a shop and they're gonna grade it.
It's not like a computer is going to scan the comic book and determine every error in it.
It's some guy that looks at it.
And how do you grade the interiors? Because if you crack the cover and you damage the spine blind from cracking the cover to look on the inside. But how do you know if it's any good if you don't see the inside? You have pages missing, and they graded it as a 9 point whatever because they won't crack the damn cover to see what the fucking book looks
and
like.
if you buy it, you're not going to crack it to know
Right.
either. So it's just
it's dumb. And
Now-
of course, as a retailer, plenty of times there's printing issues that you won't know until you crack the fucking book open.
Now, the only one I would truly buy is the legendary ex-girlfriend one, where it's like an Avengers one, and the dude's ex-girlfriend was pissed at him and just wrote all over it, "You fucking loser" and nerd.
I don't think I've heard of that.
I've seen pictures of it.
It's hilarious.
It's mystical, like mythical. I want to see it, and I would want to own that just because the guy actually had it fucking slabbed because it's like a fucking really expensive book, and she just destroyed it by writing all this shit all over. I think that's just fucking hilarious.
And that'd be a great fucking way to launder a book like that. You know, it's in the slab. You think you got a 9 point something, and it's like
shit!
and it's got all kinds of shit on the inside. Yeah.
Launder money now.
How would you prove it? You have to crack it open, and then it's not a 9 point whatever anymore. What a fucking scam, man! I'm sorry.
Anyway, rereading this stuff, I'm back on my Dreadstar kick. Let's start reading Dreadstar and Company.
Yeah, but also I want to read Grimjack because it's the 40th
damn
anniversary
it.
of Grimjack. We'll get there. I need to lead us to a small break because I'm gonna have to read a whole bunch more recaps. So I want give me at least a few months break, and we'll come right back to it. But we gotta go. I'll tell you. I'll make you a deal. I'll make you this deal. As soon as we record our first Grimjack episode, then I'll start on the Dreadstar stuff again.
Should I start reading the floppies then? I think I have some of the floppies. Like,
Yeah, but again, read the Grimjacks I gave you today first. I gave you the
Today?
Legend of Grimjack trade
Today?
paperback. No, not today, but
okay.
in the reasonable near future. If you would like to talk about Dreadstar, then read the Grimjacks first. Dreadstar is not celebrating the 40th anniversary. Grimjack is. Also, I've been talking about doing Grimjack the entire time we've been podcasting, which is the better part of a decade at this point. You realize that? We've been doing this for almost 10 years now. We started in 2014.
I don't know whether to laugh or cry.
No, cry. Definitely cry. I definitely have a lot more gray hairs coming out of my head than I did back then.
You know what the
For
crazy thing
starters.
is? I don't know why. I really did think about this like 2 or 3 days ago. I remember us going to a restaurant.
Oh, yeah.
And you bringing up the idea of podcasting, and I was super pumped. I was super pumped because fucking Kevin Smith was doing it, and I remember Mac was like, I remember, and we were sitting there eating. Fuck, that was 10 years ago.
9, a little under 9, because
sad.
our first episode was Guardians of the Galaxy and
What we have to do is go to that same restaurant on the 10th year anniversary and record at the restaurant. It's still there, I'm pretty sure.
I can make it happen. I can make that happen.
Then we'll get hit by a Chevy Tahoe coming in the back. Remember that? Did you see that? You saw that shit.
That wasn't the same restaurant though.
No.
we never
It was
been
in
there.
fucking Houston, you idiot. Pretty fucking close. I'm sorry, wasn't in the exact same restaurant.
And then we would die when
Two
the next
kids
one hits.
podcasting from a restaurant in Houston. I'm sorry it wasn't close enough for you.
Well, actually,
Turn this podcast out and fucking edit out 9/10 of what we actually talked about.
Thanks go out to Between the Pages blog, Chris Dunford, Chris Lydon, Dave's Comic Heroes blog, Dirk Ashton, Ed Moore, History of Comics on Film, The Irredeemable Shag, Jennifer F., Julia Raoul, Rainbow Edition, Keith G. Baker, Long Box of Darkness, Melissa Rehan Soral, Professor Frenzy, Randy Caldwell, Richard Field, Slangward Scott, Tim Price the Podcrasher, Ward Hill Terry, and Zwit Jameson.
The Underguise is a Rolled Spine podcast. All references to copyrighted works and audio clips employed are believed covered under fair use, with no infringement intended against their copyright holders. The views expressed in this podcast are assumed legitimate, truthful, and solely possessed by the speaker.